Roger Sheron was 45 years old and lived in Madison, Mississippi. He worked as a spokesman and chief fundraiser for a charity called A Bucket of Barbecue, which handed out barbecue to poor people. Roger was well known in Madison for his friendly smile and outgoing personality. He often appeared in local newspapers and on TV, talking about the charity's work. Roger lived in a comfortable house on Pine Street with his wife of 8 months, Leanne. They had no children yet, but Roger had a son from his previous marriage to Juniper Sheron. Roger's home was always neat, and he loved to entertain guests, especially during holidays like the 4th of July. Roger went to Madison High School, where he was a popular student. He was involved in the debate club and played on the basketball team. After high school, he attended the University of Mississippi, where he studied communications. He used his education to help the charity grow, making sure they had enough funds to keep helping the community. Roger was seen as a kind and generous man by many, but those who knew him well saw a different side. He could be controlling and had a bad temper. His first wife, Juniper, often spoke about their difficult 9-year marriage. She said that the abuse started with small things but quickly got worse, turning into physical violence. But people in her small southern suburb did not believe her. They believed she read too many books and had an overactive imagination. Whatever flaws he may have had, Roger had big dreams for a bucket of barbecue. In the days before his death, he was busy organizing a large barbecue event for the 4th of July. He wanted to expand the charity's reach and hoped to get more media coverage. He was excited about the event and worked long hours to make it a success. Roger's friends and colleagues described him as a man with two sides. In public, he was charming and helpful. In private, he struggled with anger and control issues. His wife, Leanne, supported him publicly but privately complained to friends about his behavior behind closed doors. Roger's story is a complex one, showing how someone can be both a hero and a villain. However, his life and death left a lasting impact on the community of Madison. On the morning of July 5, 2019, around 7:30 a.m., George Miller, a retired police officer, was taking his usual morning walk in the quiet neighborhood of Madison, Mississippi. The 4th of July celebrations had ended the night before, and the streets were littered with remnants of fireworks and decorations. As George strolled down Pine Street, he noticed an unusual amount of smoke coming from Roger Sheron's backyard. Curious and concerned, George decided to check it out. Roger's house, known for its neat appearance, now had smoke rising ominously from the back. George walked up to the fence and peeked over. What he saw made his heart skip a beat. Roger Sheron's head was slumped over the deep fryer, his head submerged in oil, and the fryer was still smoldering. George's training as a former police officer kicked in. He quickly dialed 911, his hands shaking as he reported what he had found. "There's smoke and I think Roger is dead. It looks like a terrible accident or worse," he told the operator. The dispatcher assured George that help was on the way and advised him to stay on the line until the police arrived. George, though shocked and horrified, managed to remain relatively calm. He stayed by the fence, watching to ensure no one tampered with the scene before the authorities arrived. Within minutes, the Madison police arrived, sirens blaring. Officers immediately secured the area, and the fire department was called in to extinguish the smoldering deep fryer. George recounted his discovery to the officers, trying to keep his voice steady. "I was just walking by when I saw the smoke. I looked over the fence and saw Roger. His head was in the fryer. It was awful." They thanked George for his help and asked him to stay nearby for further questions. The scene was chaotic, with officers and firefighters working quickly to secure evidence and put out the remaining smoke. As the fire was brought under control, it became clear that Roger's death was not an accident but a gruesome and deliberate act. The police began their investigation, carefully examining the backyard for any clues that could point to Roger's killer. The discovery of Roger Sheron's body marked the beginning of a complex and chilling murder case that would soon shake the entire community of Madison. The police arrived quickly at Roger Sheron's home on the morning of July 5, 2019. Detective Sarah Coleman and her partner, Detective Paul Johnson, led the investigation. Both were experienced detectives known for their thoroughness and attention to detail. When they arrived, they found a chaotic and disturbing scene. The backyard was still smoky, and the smell of burnt oil hung in the air. Roger's body was slumped into the deep fryer, his head badly burned. Blood splatters were visible on the ground and nearby surfaces, indicating a violent struggle had taken place. Detective Coleman directed the officers to secure the perimeter, making sure no one could enter or leave without permission. She and Detective Johnson began their meticulous examination of the scene. They first took photographs from all angles, capturing every detail of the gruesome sight. They collected fingerprints from the deep prior, the fence, and other objects in the yard. As they moved through the backyard, they noted several items that seemed out of place. A pair of gloves, partially hidden under a bush, caught their attention. The detectives bagged the gloves for further examination, hoping they would provide clues about the killer. The detectives then focused on the deep fryer. It was clear that Roger's death was not an accident. The level of brutality suggested a deep personal motive. They carefully lifted Roger's body from the fryer, noting the extent of his injuries. His face and upper body were severely burned, and there were signs of blunt force trauma, suggesting he had been hit before being placed in the fryer. The forensics team arrived shortly after and began their work. They used luminol to detect any hidden blood stains and collected hair and fiber samples from the scene. The team also examined Roger's clothing for any additional evidence. Detective Johnson, known for his keen observational skills, found the set of footprints leading away from the deep fryer toward the back gate. The footprints were photographed and measured, giving the police a potential clue about the killer's size and type of shoes worn. By noon, the initial investigation at the crime scene was complete. Detective Coleman and Detective Johnson had gathered a significant amount of evidence, but they knew the real challenge was just beginning. They needed to piece together the evidence and figure out who had the motive and opportunity to commit such a heinous act. The brutal nature of Roger Sheron's death shocked the community of Madison. News of the murder spread quickly, appearing in local newspapers like the Clarion Ledger and on TV stations such as WOBT. The detectives knew they had to act fast to solve the case and bring the killer to justice. The first suspect in the investigation was Cassandra Barnes. Cassandra was 22 years old and known for her vibrant and outgoing personality. She was often described as the life of the party and known in the tight-knit community to have been having an affair with Roger Sheron for over a year. However, in recent weeks, she had started to distance herself from him due to his increasingly erratic behavior. Cassandra worked the drive-thru at the local Zaxby's place. She was well-liked by her customers and colleagues, who appreciated her cheerful and friendly demeanor. When Detective Sarah Coleman and Detective Paul Johnson arrived to question her, she was visibly nervous but cooperative. During the interrogation, Cassandra admitted to the affair with Roger but firmly denied any involvement in his murder. She explained that she had been at a friend's house on the night of July 4th, celebrating the holiday and watching fireworks. She provided the names of several friends who could confirm her alibi. Detective Coleman noted Cassandra's calm yet anxious demeanor. She seemed genuinely shocked by Roger's death and expressed sadness over the loss. However, her recent efforts to distance herself from Roger raised suspicions. The detectives asked her about her reasons for pulling away from Roger, and she described his controlling and sometimes frightening behavior. Cassandra mentioned that Roger had become more aggressive in recent months, often calling her late at night asking her to carve his name on her skin with a knife. She said that she had started to fear for her safety and had considered ending the relationship several times. Her fear of Roger gave the detectives a potential motive, but there was no direct evidence linking her to the crime. The detectives decided to verify Cassandra's alibi by speaking with her friends. They also collected her fingerprints and DNA samples to compare with the evidence found at the crime scene. Cassandra's friends confirmed that she had been with them on the night of the murder, watching the fireworks in a park across town. With a solid alibi and no physical evidence tying her to the scene, the detectives had to consider other suspects. Despite her possible motive, Cassandra did not seem to have had the opportunity to commit the crime. As the investigation continued, the police kept a close eye on Cassandra, ensuring that they did not overlook any potential leads. The case was still wide open, and the detectives knew they had to explore every possible angle to uncover the truth behind Roger Sheron's brutal murder. The second suspect in the investigation was Juniper Sheron, Roger's first wife. Juniper was 48 years old and lived a few doors down from Roger. She had a reserved and quiet demeanor, carrying the weight of her traumatic past. Juniper worked as a librarian at the Madison Public Library. She was well-liked by the library patrons and her colleagues. When detectives Sarah Coleman and Paul Johnson visited her home, she appeared calm but wary. She knew why they were there. During the interrogation, Juniper opened up and revealed that during their marriage, Roger had been abusive. According to her, the abuse began with spanking and quickly escalated. She described how Roger's vicious and cruel behavior had made her life a living hell. She recounted to police one particularly disturbing episode where Roger started to manically whip her while screaming that she was his carriage horse riding him to hell. She explained that she had left him to protect herself and their young son. Despite the painful memories, she insisted that she had no part in Roger's murder. Juniper told the detectives that she had been at home alone on the night of July 4th, reading and listening to the fireworks in the distance. She said she went to bed early and did not hear or see anything unusual. Her calm and steady demeanor made it difficult for the detectives to determine if she was hiding anything. The detectives found her story plausible but needed more information. They asked her about her relationship with Roger after their divorce. Juniper admitted that Roger had tried to reconcile with her several times, but she always refused. She wanted nothing to do with him after the years of touring. The detectives collected Juniper's fingerprints and DNA samples for comparison with the evidence from the crime scene. They also searched her house for any clues that might link her to the murder. Nothing out of the ordinary was found. To further verify her alibi, the detectives spoke with Juniper's neighbors. They confirmed that Juniper was often seen at home reading or gardening, and that she rarely left the house, especially at night. Her routine and demeanor did not suggest a motive for such a violent crime. Despite her traumatic past and the abuse she had suffered, there was no solid evidence tying Juniper to Roger's murder. Her calmness and willingness to cooperate made it hard to believe she was involved. The detectives had to move on to other suspects while keeping Juniper in mind as the investigation progressed. On the morning of July 6, 2019, the weather in Madison, Mississippi was hot and humid. Detective Sarah Coleman and Detective Paul Johnson were back at the station, sifting through the evidence collected from Roger Sheron's crime scene. Just as they were feeling stuck, a breakthrough came in the form of new evidence. At around 10 a.m., a neighbor called the police. She said she had found something strange while cleaning her yard. She said lived next door to Roger and had seen the smoke from his backyard on the morning of July 5th. She discovered a small blood-stained handkerchief under a bush near the property line. Detective Coleman and Detective Johnson rushed to Linda's house to collect the evidence. They carefully bagged the handkerchief and sent it to the lab for DNA analysis. They thanked her for her keen observation and told her to let them know if she found anything else unusual. The detectives felt a renewed sense of urgency as they awaited the lab results. When the results came in later that afternoon, they showed that the blood on the handkerchief matched Roger Sheron's DNA. More importantly, the analysis also revealed DNA from another individual. The detectives immediately compared the new DNA sample with the profiles they had collected from the suspects. The DNA matched Leanne Sheron, Roger's current wife. This was a significant piece of evidence, pointing towards her potential involvement in the murder. With the new lead, Detective Coleman and Detective Johnson felt they were getting closer to solving the case. They needed to piece together the final puzzle to bring justice to Roger Sheron and his family. The third suspect in the investigation was Leanne Sheron, Roger's current wife. Leanne was 30 years old and known for her gentle and nurturing personality. Neighbors often saw her as a devoted wife who cared deeply for her home and garden. However, behind closed doors, she endured Roger's violent and abusive behavior. Leanne worked as a nurse's aide at Madison General Hospital. She was respected by her colleagues and patients for her kindness and dedication. When detectives Sarah Coleman and Paul Johnson arrived to question her again, they had new evidence from the blood-stained handkerchief. Leanne greeted the detectives with a nervous smile. During the interrogation, they presented the handkerchief and the DNA results. Leanne's face went pale, and she struggled to maintain her composure. She confessed to having an argument with Roger on the night of July 4th, but insisted she did not kill him. She recounted the events leading up to the argument. Roger had become increasingly abusive, both physically and emotionally. On the night of July 4th, he tied her to a chair and forced her to watch as he had sex with Cassandra Barnes. This was the final straw for Leanne. When she managed to free herself, she confronted Roger in a rage, beating him until her hands felt numb. She admitted to wiping her blood with a handkerchief after cutting her hand during the struggle. Detective Coleman noted Leanne's mix of fear and anger as she described the abuse. Leanne explained that she felt trapped and desperate. The detectives could see that she had suffered greatly, but they needed to know if she had taken the final step of killing Roger. Leanne's motive was clear. She had endured years of abuse and humiliation, and the events of July 4th pushed her to the edge. However, she continued to deny any direct involvement in Roger's death.
Her calm yet shaken demeanor made it difficult to determine if she was telling the whole truth. The detectives collected more evidence from Leanne's home, including her clothing and any items that could be linked to the crime scene. They also spoke with her colleagues at the hospital, who confirmed her stories of stress and fear caused by her husband's behavior. While the evidence against Leanne was mounting, it wasn't conclusive. The detectives knew they had to keep investigating to find the truth. They needed to piece together all the evidence and determine if Leanne's desperation had led her to murder. As the investigation continued, Detective Coleman and Detective Johnson remained focused on uncovering every detail of the case. They hoped to bring justice to Roger Sheron and his family, and find peace for Leanne and the other victims of Roger's abuse. On July 10, 2019, the Madison police were closing in on their primary suspect. After days of intense investigation, they had enough evidence to identify the murderer. Leanne Sheron, Roger's current wife, was the prime suspect. She had endured years of abuse and reached her breaking point on the night of July 4th. The final piece of the puzzle came from a neighbor's security camera footage. It showed Leanne entering the backyard around the time of Roger's murder, looking distressed and agitated. This footage, combined with the DNA evidence from the bloodstained handkerchief and her own admission of the intense argument, led the detectives to believe Leanne was responsible for Roger's death. Detectives Sarah Coleman and Paul Johnson, along with a team of officers, arrived at Leanne's house early in the morning. It was around 6 a.m. and the sun was just beginning to rise. They knocked on the door, and Leanne, looking exhausted and defeated, answered. "Leanne Sheron, you are under arrest for the murder of Roger Sheron," Detective Coleman said firmly. Leanne didn't resist. She seemed almost relieved as the officers handcuffed her and read her rights. She was taken to the police station for further questioning. During the interrogation, Leanne finally confessed to the crime. She described in detail how the years of abuse had driven her to the edge. On the night of July 4th, after the horrific incident where Roger forced her to watch him have sex with Cassandra, she saw no other way out. She waited until he was alone in the backyard and then attacked him. In a fit of rage and desperation, she dumped his head into the deep fryer, ending his life. Leanne explained that she didn't plan the murder but acted out of a moment of intense fear and anger. She felt trapped and saw no other way to escape the cycle of abuse. Her confession was filled with tears and regret, but also a sense of relief that the nightmare was over. The news of Leanne's arrest spread quickly through Madison. Roger's family and friends were shocked but also expressed a sense of understanding. They knew about his abusive behavior and sympathized with Leanne's plight. The community was divided, with some feeling that justice had been served and others struggling to comprehend the brutal nature of the crime. Roger's family were devastated. They had lost a family member in a horrific way and now had to deal with the fallout of their stepmother being the murderer. The emotional toll was immense. Leanne's arrest marked a significant turning point in the investigation. The police had solved the case, but the impact of the crime would linger in the community for a long time. As Leanne awaited trial, the residents of Madison tried to come to terms with the tragic events that had unfolded. Leanne Sheron's trial began on September 15, 2019 at the Madison County Courthouse. The courtroom was packed with reporters, family members, and curious residents. The prosecution was led by District Attorney James Powell, a 50-year-old known for his tenacity and stern demeanor. The defense attorney was Mary Merled, a compassionate 45-year-old with a reputation for defending victims of abuse. District Attorney Powell opened the case by presenting the evidence. He described the horrific nature of Roger Sheron's death and showed the security footage of Leanne entering the backyard. He argued that, despite her claims of abuse, Leanne had committed a premeditated murder. Mary Merled countered by highlighting the years of abuse Leanne had suffered. She painted a picture of a woman driven to the edge by relentless torment. Merled brought in witnesses, including Leanne's colleagues and neighbors, to testify about the abuse. She argued that Leanne acted in a moment of desperation and should be shown leniency. Throughout the trial, Roger's family watched with mixed emotions. They were heartbroken over his death, but also knew about his violent behavior. The courtroom was tense as both sides presented their arguments. Leanne took the stand and gave a tearful account of her life with Roger. She described the constant fear and the night of the murder in detail. Her testimony moved many in the courtroom, including members of the jury. She explained that she saw no way out and acted to protect herself from further harm. After several days of testimony and arguments, the jury deliberated for 2 days. On September 22nd, they reached a verdict.
Leanne was found guilty of second-degree murder. The jury acknowledged her years of suffering but could not overlook the brutality of the crime. The judge sentenced Leanne to 20 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 10 years. He stated that while he understood the circumstances that led to the crime, the law required accountability for such a violent act. The sentence was met with mixed reactions. Some felt it was too harsh, considering the abuse Leanne endured. Others believed justice was served. Roger's family had mixed feelings. They were relieved that the trial was over but struggled with the loss and the complicated emotions surrounding it. Leanne's friends and colleagues expressed sympathy for her plight and hoped she would find some measure of peace and rehabilitation during her time in prison. The trial's outcome left a lasting impact on the community. It sparked discussions about domestic abuse and the legal system's handling of such cases. Many hoped that Leanne's story would raise awareness and lead to better support for victims of abuse. After the trial, life moved on for those involved in the tragic case of Roger Sheron's murder. Leanne Sheron, now serving her sentence at Mississippi State Penitentiary, began to adjust to life behind bars. She participated in therapy programs aimed at helping inmates deal with trauma and abuse. Leanne's case brought attention to domestic violence issues, prompting local organizations like Safe Haven to offer more support to abuse survivors. The community of Madison slowly returned to its routines, but the memory of Roger's murder lingered. Local businesses like A Bucket of Barbecue, the charity Roger had supported, held fundraisers in his memory. People gathered at Madison City Park, where Roger had often volunteered during community events, to honor his legacy. Detectives Sarah Coleman and Paul Johnson received accolades for their dedication to solving the case. They continued to work on other investigations, but the Sheron case stayed with them. They remained in touch with Roger's family, providing updates and support as needed. The Madison Police Department implemented new training programs for officers to recognize signs of domestic abuse and respond effectively. They partnered with local shelters and advocacy groups who improved services for victims in need of assistance. As the months passed, the intensity of emotions surrounding Roger's murder began to fade. The anniversary of his death in July 2020 prompted a small memorial at Madison City Park, where friends and community members gathered to reflect on his life and the impact of domestic violence. For Leanne Sheron and everyone connected to the case, life after the trial was a journey of healing and reflection. The events of July 2019 left an indelible mark on their lives and their community, serving as a reminder of the importance of addressing and preventing domestic violence. Our story begins with Dave Markerson, a 58-year-old financial analyst living in Fishers, Indiana. Dave was a hardworking man known for his smart mind and calm demeanor. He lived with his second wife, Vivi, and had 2 adult children from his first marriage, Jason and Lana. Dave was well respected in his community and had a stable job that he loved. Dave graduated from Indiana University with a degree in finance. He had a successful career working for a well-known financial firm in Indianapolis. Despite his busy work schedule, Dave always made time for his family. He enjoyed playing chess with his friends at the local chess club and reading mystery novels by authors like Agatha Christie and Arthur Conan Doyle. His favorite book was The Hound of the Baskervilles. Dave's personality was warm and kind. He was always there to help his friends and family. His children, Jason and Lana, loved him dearly. Jason, 25, was trying to find his way in the world and had a complicated relationship with his father. Lana, 24, admired her father and often saw his advice for her event-planning business. In the days before his death, Dave was excited about the upcoming Christmas holiday. He looked forward to spending time with his family and had already bought gifts for everyone. Dave's favorite part of the holiday season was decorating the Christmas tree and watching classic Christmas movies like It's a Wonderful Life and Die Hard. He enjoyed the festive atmosphere and loved seeing the joy on his family's faces. On December 20, 2007, Dave was planning to attend a Christmas party of his office. He was in good spirits and had even picked out a special tie with Santa Claus on it. Dave's last few days were filled with joy and anticipation as he made plans to celebrate Christmas with his loved ones. Dave's friends and colleagues remember him as a dedicated and generous person. His sudden death shocked everyone who knew him. The news of his passing was covered by the local media, and many people in the community mourned his loss. Dave's life seemed perfect on the outside, but he was unaware of the dark secrets that would soon come to light. On the morning of December 21, 2007, it was a cold and cloudy day in Fishers, Indiana. Snowflakes gently fell from the sky, covering the ground in the light dusting of white. Inside the Marcherson home, the Christmas decorations sparkled with festive lights, and a soft holiday tune played on the radio. Lana Marcherson, Dave's 24-year-old daughter, woke up early. She planned to finish some work for her event-planning business before meeting a friend for lunch at the local Applebee's. As she walked down the stairs, she noticed that her father, Dave, wasn't up yet. It was unusual because Dave was always an early riser. Concerned, Lana went to the living room, where she found her father lying on the couch. At first, she thought he was asleep. She called out to him softly, "Dad, it's time to wake up." But Dave didn't move. Lana approached him and gently shook his shoulder. When he still didn't respond, she noticed his skin was cold to the touch. Panic began to set in. Lana's heart raced as she checked for a pulse, but there was none. Overwhelmed with fear and confusion, she called 911. "My dad is not breathing. I think he's dead," she cried, her voice trembling. The dispatcher assured her that help was on the way. Within minutes, emergency responders arrived at the scene. The paramedics confirmed that Dave was dead. Lana was in shock and disbelief, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't understand how her father, who had been healthy and happy just the day before, could be gone. Detective Billy Pestian, a seasoned investigator with the Fishers Police Department, was called to the scene. He observed the living room, noting the cozy, festive setting. Dave's body was lying peacefully on the couch, with no visible signs of trauma. At first glance, it appeared to be a natural death. The news of Dave's sudden passing quickly spread through the community. Friends and neighbors gathered outside the Marcherson home, whispering in hushed tones. The local news station, WTHR Channel 13, reported on Dave's death, highlighting his contributions to the community and his loving family. Lana's discovery of her father's body was a heartbreaking moment that left her in a state of shock. She couldn't comprehend the loss and kept replaying the events in her mind. The once joyful holiday season had turned into a time of mourning and sorrow for the Marcherson family. On December 21, 2007, Detective Billy Pestian arrived promptly at the Marcherson home after receiving the emergency call. It was a cold and cloudy morning, with a light dusting of snow on the ground. Detective Pestian was known for his meticulous attention to detail and calm demeanor. The living room was decorated with festive Christmas lights and a beautifully adorned tree. The scene seemed peaceful, but Detective Pestian sensed something was off. Dave Marcherson's body lay on the couch, appearing as if he had peacefully fallen asleep. There were no signs of a struggle or any visible injuries. The first responders were already there, and the paramedics had confirmed Dave's death. Detective Pestian began his investigation by carefully examining the room. He noticed a teacup on the coffee table next to Dave, which seemed out of place given the circumstances. He instructed the forensic team to collect the teacup and any other potential evidence for further analysis. Detective Pestian then turned his attention to Lana, who was still in shock and being comforted by a neighbor. He gently asked her about the events leading up to the discovery of her father's body. Lana explained that she had found him that morning and immediately called 911. She mentioned that Dave had seemed perfectly fine the night before and had even been looking forward to the office Christmas party. As the investigation continued, Detective Pestian called in the coroner to conduct a preliminary examination of Dave's body. The coroner, Dr. Susan Mancoro, was an experienced professional known for her thoroughness. She noted that while there were no external injuries, Dave's skin had an unusual discoloration. Dr. Taylor suspected poisoning and took samples for toxicology testing. As the day progressed, Detective Pestian received a call from the lab. The preliminary toxicology report indicated the presence of a rare toxin in Dave's system, confirming Dr. Mancoro's suspicion. This discovery changed the course of the investigation, turning it from a potential natural death to a suspected homicide. The first suspect in the case was Vivi Marcherson Greaves, Dave's 19-year-old second wife. Vivi was known for her charm and sociable nature. She worked as an event planner and was well-liked in her community. Vivi often organized memorable events and was known for her attention to detail. However, beneath her friendly exterior, Vivi had a complicated personal life. Detective Billy Pestian and his team arrived at Vivi's office, a local event planning business in Fishers, Indiana. The office was decorated for the holidays with bright lights and festive decorations. Vivi greeted them with a warm smile, but the detectives noticed a hint of nervousness in her eyes. They asked her to come to the station for questioning. At the police station, Detective Pestian began the interrogation. Vivi seemed calm but cautious. She explained that she had spent the previous evening at home with Dave, watching Hallmark movies and enjoying a quiet night in. When asked about her relationship with Dave, Vivi described it as loving and supportive. However, Detective Pestian pressed further, mentioning rumors of an affair between Vivi and her stepson, Jason. Vivi's demeanor changed slightly. She denied any romantic involvement with Jason, insisting they were just close due to their shared love for event planning. Despite her calm exterior, Vivi's answers were often vague and evasive. The detectives knew they needed more concrete evidence. As the questioning continued, Detective Pestian asked Vivi about the teacup found next to Dave's body. Vivi hesitated before explaining that it was part of their nightly routine for Dave to drink tea before bed. She insisted that she had no idea how the toxin could have gotten into the tea. Her answers seemed rehearsed, and Detective Pestian noted her increasing nervousness. The motive for Vivi was becoming clearer. If she was indeed having an affair with Jason, Dave's death could free her from a loveless marriage and allow her to be with Jason openly. The detectives also discovered financial records showing that Dave had a substantial life insurance policy, with Vivi as the beneficiary. Despite Vivi's calm demeanor, her vague answers and potential motives made her a prime suspect. Detective Pestian knew they needed more evidence to either confirm or rule out her involvement in Dave's death. The investigation into Vivi Markerson Greaves was just beginning, and the detectives were determined to uncover the truth behind the murder. As the detectives continued their investigation, they knew they had to dig deeper into Vivi's personal life and her relationship with Jason. The next steps would involve interviewing more people and looking for any inconsistencies in Vivi's story. But truth was out there, and Detective Pestian and his team were committed to finding it. The second suspect in the case was Jason Marcherson, Dave's 25-year-old son. Jason was known for his sharp mind and resourcefulness. He had a complicated relationship with his father and had spent some time in a mental facility. Jason had recently developed a romantic relationship with his stepmother, Vivi, which made him a prime suspect. Detective Billy Pestian and his team arrived at Jason's apartment in downtown Indianapolis. Jason greeted them with a wary look, aware of the gravity of the situation. The detectives asked him to come to the station for questioning. At the police station, Detective Pestian began the interrogation. Jason seemed calm but guarded. He explained that he had been at his apartment the night before Dave's death, working on a project. When asked about his relationship with his father, Jason admitted that they had their differences but insisted that he would never harm him. Detective Pestian then brought up the rumors of Jason's affair with Vivi. Jason's calm demeanor faltered slightly. He admitted to having feelings for Vivi, but denied any involvement in Dave's death. He claimed that their relationship was consensual and that they had planned to talk to Dave about it after the holidays. The detectives pressed further, asking Jason about his recent financial troubles. Jason revealed that he had been struggling with an addiction to marijuana and had been borrowing money from his father to support his habit. He also admitted that he had been blackmailing Vivi for money, threatening to expose their affair if she didn't pay him. The motive for Jason was becoming clearer. If Dave were out of the picture, Jason could potentially gain access to more money and continue his relationship with Vivi without fear of exposure. The detectives also discovered that Jason had recently purchased a large quantity of the rare toxin found in Dave's system. Despite his calm exterior, Jason's admissions and potential motives made him a prime suspect. Detective Pestian knew they needed more evidence to either confirm or rule out his involvement in Dave's death. The investigation into Jason Marcherson was just beginning, and the detectives were determined to uncover the truth. As the detectives continued their investigation, they knew they had to dig deeper into Jason's personal life and his relationship with Vivi. The next steps would involve interviewing more people and looking for any inconsistencies in Jason's story. The truth was out there, and Detective Pestian and his team were committed to finding it. The detectives left no stone unturned, ensuring that every detail was examined and every lead followed. They were determined to bring justice for Dave Marcherson and uncover the true story behind his tragic death. On December 23, 2007, just 2 days before Christmas, the weather in Fishers, Indiana, was cold and overcast. Detective Billy Pestian received a call that would change the course of the investigation. New evidence had been found in Dave Marcherson's home. The discovery provided a crucial breakthrough in the case. Earlier that morning, a neighbor had noticed something unusual while walking her dog. She saw an envelope sticking out from under a flower pot on the Marchersons' porch. Curious, she picked it up and saw that it was addressed to Detective Pestian. The neighbor immediately called the police, and Detective Pestian rushed to the scene. The envelope contained a letter and a small vial. The letter was unsigned but provided detailed information about the rare toxin found in Dave's system. The writer claimed to know who the killer was and provided specific details about how the toxin had been acquired and used. The letter also mentioned a hidden stash of documents in the Marchersons' attic that would reveal the true motive behind the murder. Detective Pestian and his team quickly obtained a warrant to search the attic. Inside, they found a lockbox. Using tools to carefully open it, they discovered several important documents, including financial records, personal letters, and a detailed plan outlining how the murder was to be carried out. The documents pointed to a well-planned conspiracy. Among the papers was a receipt for the purchase of the rare toxin, dated 2 months before Dave's death. The name on the receipt was Leanne Sheron, Dave's 24-year-old daughter. The detectives were shocked by this revelation, as Lana had not been a primary suspect up until this point. The new evidence painted a different picture of the crime. Detective Pestian and his team reviewed the documents thoroughly, uncovering Lana's hidden motives. The letters revealed her deep jealousy over Jason's relationship with Vivi and her desire to remove her father from the picture to gain control over the family's finances and the event planning business she co-owned with Vivi. The police responded to this new evidence by calling Lana in for further questioning. When confronted with the documents, Lana's demeanor changed from cooperative to defensive. She denied any involvement at first, but eventually broke down under pressure, revealing the extent of her involvement in the plot. Detective Pestian knew they were getting closer to solving the case. The new evidence provided a clear motive and linked Lana directly to the crime. The police continued to gather more information, determined to bring justice to Dave Marcherson's tragic death. The third suspect in the case was Leanne Sheron, Dave's 24-year-old daughter. Lana was a pragmatic and ambitious young woman who co-owned an event planning business with Vivi. She was known for her hard work and dedication, and she was fiercely loyal to Vivi. However, her jealousy and complex emotions added a layer of intrigue to the case. On December 24, 2007, Detective Billy Pestian and his team called Lana in for further questioning. It was Christmas Eve, and the weather outside was cold with a light snow falling. The festive decorations at the police station stood in stark contrast to the serious atmosphere of the interrogation room. Lana arrived at the station, visibly nervous but trying to maintain her composure. Detective Pestian began the interrogation by asking Lana about her relationship with her father. Lana described her father as loving and supportive, but admitted they have their differences, especially regarding the family business and her personal life. When Detective Pestian brought up the newly discovered documents, Lana's demeanor shifted. She became defensive, denying any involvement in her father's death. However, the detectives presented her with the receipt for the rare toxin, which bore her name. The evidence was overwhelming, and Lana's story began to unravel. Lana eventually confessed to her part in the plot. She admitted to feeling jealous of her brother Jason's relationship with Vivi and her father's control over the family's finances. Lana saw an opportunity to gain control over the business and her father's estate by eliminating him. She had supplied Vivi with the rare toxin, encouraging her to use it to poison Dave. The detectives were stunned by Lana's cold and calculated confession. She revealed how she had manipulated both Vivi and Jason to achieve her goals. Her jealousy and ambition had driven her to commit a heinous crime, betraying her own family in the process. Lana's motive became clear. She wanted to remove her father from the picture to gain financial control and to keep Vivi for herself. Her unrequited love for Vivi and jealousy of Jason's relationship with her fueled her actions. Lana's confession provided the final piece of the puzzle, linking her directly to the crime and revealing her as the true mastermind behind the murder. Detective Pestian and his team were now confident they had uncovered the full extent of the plot. Lana's detailed confession, along with the physical evidence, provided a clear picture of her involvement. The investigation into Leanne Sheron revealed a chilling tale of jealousy, manipulation, and betrayal, bringing them closer to solving the tragic case. On December 25, 2007, the weather in Fishers, Indiana, was cold and snowy. It was Christmas morning, and the town was quiet. Detective Billy Pestian and his team had gathered enough evidence to identify the murderer. The killer was Vivi Sheron, Dave's 19-year-old wife. Her motives were a mix of desperation to escape her loveless marriage and a desire to be with her stepson, Jason. Vivi's plan was meticulously crafted. She had purchased a rare toxin with the help of Lana, Dave's daughter. Vivi then mixed the poison into Dave's favorite evening tea. The poison caused a slow and painful death, which initially appeared natural due to its subtle symptoms. Vivi thought she had planned the perfect crime, but the evidence told a different story. Detective Pestian reviewed the evidence one last time before heading to the Marcherson home to make the arrest. Vivi had become the primary suspect after Lana's confession. The detailed plan found in the attic, the toxicology report, and the receipt for the rare toxin all pointed to Vivi's involvement. The detectives were ready to bring her to justice. As Detective Pestian and his team approached the Marcherson home, they saw the festive Christmas lights twinkling. Despite the holiday cheer, the atmosphere was tense. The detectives knocked on the door, and Vivi answered, her face showing a mix of surprise and fear. "Vivi Marcherson, you are under arrest for the murder of Dave Marcherson," Detective Pestian announced. Vivi was shocked, but quickly composed herself. She was handcuffed and led to the police car, her neighbors watching in disbelief. At the police station, Vivi was questioned again. This time, with all the evidence laid out before her, she broke down and confessed. She admitted to poisoning Dave to be with Jason and escape her unhappy marriage. She also revealed that Jason had been blackmailing her for money to support his drug addiction. Feeling trapped and betrayed, Vivi had hoped that confessing might bring her some leniency. The reaction from Dave's family was a mix of relief and sorrow. His children, Jason and Lana, were devastated by the betrayal and loss. The neighbors and friends who had known the Marchersons were shocked to learn the truth. The small town of Fishers, Indiana, was rocked by the news of the murder and the dark secrets that had come to light. Vivi's arrest brought a sense of closure to the investigation. Detective Pestian and his team had worked tirelessly to uncover the truth. The case was a stark reminder of how jealousy and desperation could lead to tragic consequences. As Vivi was taken away, the town began to heal, knowing that justice had been served. The trial of Vivi Marcherson began on February 10, 2008, in Fishers, Indiana. The courtroom was filled with reporters, family members, and curious locals. The weather was cold and snowy, reflecting the somber mood inside. The prosecutor, Malia Jacobs-Chan, a 45-year-old seasoned attorney known for her determination and sharp wit, presented the case against Vivi. Malia Jacobs-Chan laid out the evidence methodically, explaining how Vivi had purchased the rare toxin with the help of Lana and used it to poison her husband, Dave. She described the financial and romantic motives, highlighting Vivi's desperation to escape her marriage and be with Jason. Jacobs called several witnesses, including Detective Billy Pestian, who detailed the investigation and the evidence found. The defense attorney, Mickey Mouse Brown, a 50-year-old with a reputation for defending tough cases, argued that Vivi was coerced by Jason and Lana. He painted Vivi as a victim of manipulation, desperate and frightened. Brown tried to cast doubt on the prosecution's timeline and motives, suggesting that Jason and Lana were the real masterminds. The courtroom was tense as the trial unfolded. Dave's family sat in the front row, their faces a mix of sadness and anger. They listened intently as both sides presented their arguments. The jury was visibly affected by the emotional testimonies and the detailed evidence. After several days of deliberation, the jury found Vivi Marcherson guilty of first-degree murder. The verdict was announced on February 20, 2008. Vivi showed little emotion as the verdict was read, but her pale face and trembling hands revealed her fear. The judge sentenced Vivi to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The sentence brought a sense of justice to Dave's family, though the pain of losing him remained. The impact of the trial and verdict rippled through the community. Dave's children, Jason and Lana, were deeply affected. Jason, already struggling with his drug addiction, found it hard to cope with the guilt and shame. Lana, despite her involvement, expressed remorse and cooperated with the authorities, which resulted in a lesser charge and a reduced sentence. The trial's conclusion marked the end of a tragic chapter for the Marcherson family. The small town of Fishers, Indiana, was left to grapple with the shocking events and the dark secrets that had come to light. The case was widely covered in the media, with news outlets and local stations providing extensive coverage of the trial and its aftermath. In the end, justice was served, but the scars left behind would take a long time to heal. The Marcherson family and the community of Fishers would forever remember the dark love triangle that led to Dave's tragic death. After the trial, life in Fishers, Indiana, slowly began to return to normal. However, for the Marcherson family, the aftermath of the murder left deep scars. Dave Marcherson's death and the trial of his wife, Vivi, had changed their lives forever. Jason Marcherson, Dave's 25-year-old son, struggled the most. His drug addiction had worsened during the trial, and he had a hard time dealing with the guilt and shame of his involvement with Vivi. He checked into a rehabilitation center in Indianapolis, hoping to overcome his addiction and start anew. The path to recovery was long and challenging, but Jason was determined to turn his life around. Lana Markterson, Dave's 24-year-old daughter, faced her own set of challenges. Her role in the murder and the manipulation of Vivi had been exposed during the trial. Despite her cooperation with the authorities, she received a reduced sentence of 5 years in prison. Lana expressed deep remorse for her actions and planned to use her time in prison to reflect and rehabilitate. Vivi Markterson, now serving a like sentence, adapted to life behind bars. She spent her days reflecting on the choices that led to her imprisonment. Vivi joined a prison program that focused on education and personal growth. While she would never leave prison, she hoped to find some form of redemption. The town of Fishers, Indiana, slowly healed from the tragedy. The residents, who had been shocked by the events, came together to support one another. Community events and gatherings helped restore a sense of normalcy and unity. In the end, the tragic events surrounding Dave Markterson's death served as a stark reminder of the consequences of jealousy, betrayal, and desperation. The case had left a lasting impact on all those involved, but it also highlighted the importance of justice, redemption, and the strength of the human spirit. Melanie Varela, a 20-year-old from Sherbrooke, Quebec, found herself attending the University of Virginia and working as a nanny during her summer break. This dedicated and ambitious young woman was driven by her dreams of becoming a successful lawyer. Melanie had a loving family back in Canada and was known for her kind and compassionate nature. It was the summer of 1999, and Charlottesville, Virginia was buzzing with excitement. The city was preparing for a concert at the University of Virginia's Scott Stadium. The event was highly anticipated, with fans flocking from all over the country to witness the renowned musical extravaganza. In the midst of this vibrant atmosphere, Melanie found herself employed by the wealthy Hartsfeld family. They were prominent members of the community who lived in a grand mansion on the outskirts of town, surrounded by sprawling gardens and a white picket fence. Melanie's days were filled with taking care of the Hartsfeld's child, Mei Ling, adopted from China. She would wake up early in the morning to prepare breakfast, help with school assignments, and engage in various outdoor activities. The girl adored Melanie, and she quickly became an integral part of their lives. However, beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect family, there were whispers of tension and secrets. Rumors circulated among the local gossip mill, hinting at marital discord and financial troubles within the household. As the days turned into weeks, Melanie's curiosity grew. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Determined to uncover the truth, she discreetly began snooping around the house, searching for any clues that might shed light on the Thompsons' hidden secrets. Little did Melanie know her quest for the truth would lead her down a dark and treacherous path, forever changing the course of her life. On the ominous afternoon of June 2, 1999, the quiet town of Charlottesville, Virginia, was shrouded in an atmosphere of unease. Dark clouds ominously loomed overhead, mirroring the impending tragedy that was about to unfold. As the day wore on, tension mounted within the Hartsfeld residence. The once peaceful home now held a sinister secret, unbeknownst to Melanie Varela, a diligent and driven 20-year-old student from Sherbrooke, Quebec, who had been working as a nanny for the affluent Hartsfeld family during her summer break from the University of Virginia. Little did she know that her life was about to take a tragic turn, forever altering the lives of those around her. It was in the dimly lit basement of the Hartsfeld family's opulent mansion that Melanie's lifeless body was discovered. The shocking find was made by Jane La Salvador, a Brazilian maid employed by the family. Startled and trembling, Janela wasted no time in alerting the authorities, her voice quivering with fear as she recounted the horrifying scene she had stumbled upon. Gossip about Melanie's untimely demise spread like wildfire through the tight-knit community of Charlottesville. As the investigation unfolded, details would emerge. The basement, once a place of storage and solace, had become a haunting crime scene. The authorities meticulously combed through the area, searching for any clues that would shed light on the events leading to Melanie's tragic demise. In this small town, where everyone seemed to know each other, the tragic death of Melanie Varela shattered the illusion of safety. The once peaceful streets now felt haunted
as the community grappled with the chilling reality that a dark secret had been lurking within their midst. On June 2, 1999, Charlottesville, Virginia, a city usually steeped in the idyllic charm of Southern history and academia, was rocked by a grisly discovery. In the basement of a stately home on the prestigious Maplewood Drive, the lifeless body of Leanne Sheron, a 20-year-old University of Virginia student and part-time nanny, was found. The scene was one of unmitigated horror. Sheron had been savagely murdered, her throat slit in a violent act that left the community reeling. The Charlottesville Police Department, led by seasoned detectives Smith and Ramirez, descended upon the Hartsfeld residence with a sense of urgency that matched the gravity of the crime. The family, prominent in local academic circles, was now at the center of a murder investigation that would grip the city for months to come. As the detectives navigated the blood-spattered basement, the evidence of a struggle was undeniable. Amidst the chaos, a picture of the victim began to emerge. Sheron, known for her academic ambition and compassionate nature, had been living a double life with members of the Hartsfeld family. As the investigation unfolded, local media outlets like the Daily Progress and Duty Ina Radio provided coverage, drawing parallels to the infamous Ramsey case that had captivated the nation just a few years prior. The community, still reeling from the shock, could hardly believe that such a crime could occur in their midst, in a city where the biggest concerns were often which historical tour to take or whether the Cavaliers would win their next game. The case of Leanne Sheron, with its blend of academic prestige and sordid secrets, would become a fixture in the annals of true crime in Charlottesville, a stark reminder that no place, no matter how picturesque, is immune to the darker aspects of human nature. In the quiet college town of Charlottesville, Virginia, a scandalous liaison turned deadly when Leanne Sheron, a 20-year-old University of Virginia student, was found murdered. The prime suspect, James Hartsfeld, a 44-year-old physics professor renowned for his academic prowess, but now under scrutiny for his clandestine affairs. Hartsfeld, who had been nurturing a secret sexual relationship with Sheron while she nannied his adopted daughter, Mei Ling, became the focal point of a sensational investigation. As detectives delved into the professor's private life, they uncovered a web of deceit that extended far beyond the ivy-covered walls of academia. The case, which unfolded in the summer of 1999, captivated the nation. It was a time when the world was gripped by the fear of the impending Y2K bug, and the media was still reeling from the sensational coverage of the Clinton-Lewinsky scandal. Amidst this backdrop, the Hartsfeld case emerged as a stark reminder of the dark underbelly of seemingly idyllic university life. Detectives Smith and Ramirez, seasoned investigators with the Charlottesville Police Department, interrogated Hartsfeld with a calculated intensity. They probed his alibis, dissected his interactions with Sheron, and scrutinized every facet of his personal life. Hartsfeld's reactions, a volatile cocktail of anger and denial, only served to heighten suspicions. As the interrogation wore on, the evidence against Hartsfeld mounted. A torn ticket stub from the hit movie The Matrix hinted at a premeditated alibi, and whispers of Hartsfeld's affinity for the then-popular Tommy Hilfiger Hager painted a picture of a man caught between the facade of respectability and the allure of forbidden pleasures. The case against James Hartsfeld was quickly becoming irrefutable, and the once-respected professor found himself ensnared in a narrative that seemed straight out of a Dateline mystery. As the investigation continued, the question on everyone's mind was whether justice would be served in the court of law or if the court of public opinion had already sealed Hartsfeld's fate. In the serene town of Charlottesville, a veneer of tranquility was shattered by a heinous crime that gripped the community. Paula Hartsfeld, a prominent figure in the literary circles of Charlottesville, Virginia, found herself entangled in a scandalous investigation following the brutal murder of Leanne Sheron, a young nanny employed by the Hartsfeld family. Paula, known for her erudite literary symposiums that often featured esteemed authors and captivated Charlottesville's intellectual elite, seemed an unlikely participant in such a sordid affair. Yet beneath the surface of her cultivated exterior, a different narrative was unfolding, one that would challenge the public's perception of her. The police, delving into the intricacies of Leanne's life, uncovered a clandestine sexual relationship between Paula and the victim. This revelation came as a shock to those who knew Paula as the wife of James Hartsfeld, a respected physics professor, and the mother to Mei-Ling, their adopted daughter from China. During the interrogation, Paula's composure wavered under the weight of the detectives' probing questions. Her unease was palpable, her answers laced with defensiveness. The detectives, seasoned in the art of discernment, noted the subtle shifts in her demeanor, her fleeting glances, the nervous tapping of her fingers, and the inconsistency in her recounting of the events leading up to Melanie's death. As the investigation deepened, the media frenzy intensified. Local news outlets like the Daily Progress began to speculate on the dynamics within the Hartsfeld household. The community watched, riveted, as the case unfolded, bearing witness to a tragedy that would leave an indelible mark on the town's history. The scrutiny of Paula Hartsfeld's role in this grim saga continued, with the authorities piecing together a timeline that suggested a motive rooted in jealousy and betrayal. The question on everyone's mind: could a woman of Paula's stature be capable of such a crime? Or was there more to the story than met the eye? In the investigation of Melanie Varela's murder, a pivotal discovery was made that would cast a new light on the case. The Charlottesville Police Department, in a meticulous search of the Hartsfeld residence, uncovered a diary belonging to the victim. This personal journal, filled with sexually explicit details and confessions, became a key piece of evidence, revealing the complex web of relationships Melanie had entwined with each member of the Hartsfeld family. The diary entries painted a vivid picture of Melanie's life and her interactions with each member of the family. It chronicled her secret sexual liaisons and the emotional turmoil that accompanied them. The police, combing through the pages, found references to clandestine meetings, sexual acts, and a growing sense of fear as Melanie became aware of the precariousness of her situation. Detectives Smith and Ramirez, leading the investigation, approached the diary with the precision of forensic analysts. They cross-referenced dates, events, and encounters, corroborating the diary's accounts with other collected evidence. The diary's revelations were damning, implicating not just one, but all members of the Hartsfeld family in a sordid saga of manipulation and deceit. The media, including local outlets like WVIR-NBC 29, were quick to pick up on the story. The diary's contents became fodder for speculation and analysis as reporters dissected its entries, seeking to understand the motives behind the murder. As the diary's secrets unfolded, the community of Charlottesville watched in disbelief. The University of Virginia, an institution known for its honor code and academic integrity, was now at the center of a scandal that defied comprehension. The Hartsfeld family, once respected members of the academic and literary community, were now suspects in a crime that had shattered the peace of this quiet college town. The investigation into the brutal murder of Melanie Varela took a dramatic turn as attention shifted to Kevin Hartsfeld, the 22-year-old son of James and Paula Hartsfeld. A recent graduate from the University of Virginia, Kevin's involvement with Melanie was as complex as it was secretive. Detectives Smith and Ramirez, experienced in the psychological nuances of interrogation, sat across from Kevin in the sterile room at the Charlottesville Police Department. The air was thick with tension as they began their questioning, seeking to peel back the layers of Kevin's relationship with Melanie. Kevin, his face a canvas of conflicting emotions, oscillated between anger and palpable fear. His voice, when he spoke, betrayed the turmoil within. The detectives pressed on, their questions sharp and unyielding, cutting to the heart of the matter. They probed for details about his illicit affair with Melanie, an affair that had been kept hidden from the prying eyes of the public. The interrogation revealed a disturbing pattern of behavior. Kevin, like his parents, had been ensnared in a web of sexual deceit with Melanie. The police uncovered evidence of their sexual encounters, each one meticulously documented in a perverse scorecard the family maintained. The Hartsfeld residence, once a symbol of academic achievement and cultural sophistication, was now the epicenter of a scandalous murder investigation. The family's dark secret, once confined to the pages of Melanie's diary, was now laid bare for the world to see. With each passing moment, the walls closed in on Kevin Hartsfeld. The evidence mounted, and the reality of his situation became increasingly clear. The young man, who had once walked the halls of academia with pride, now faced the possibility of a life behind bars.
In the quiet college town of Charlottesville, Virginia, a sinister plot unraveled within the walls of the Hartsfeld home, culminating in the tragic demise of Melanie Varela. The investigation into her murder took a dramatic turn when detectives uncovered the involvement of not one, but all three members of the Hartsfeld family. James Hartsfeld, a respected physics professor, his wife Paula, known for her literary gatherings, and their son Kevin, a recent college graduate, were all implicated in the crime. The trio had been entangled in a web of illicit sexual relationships with Melanie, each seeking to have secret sex with her in turn. Their clandestine sex was meticulously recorded in a scorecard of their sexual encounters with her, a chilling testament to the twisted sexual competition that had developed among them. The discovery of this scorecard was a pivotal moment in the case, as it exposed the lengths to which the Hartsfelds would go to maintain their facade of normalcy. Each point on the scorecard represented a sexual encounter with Melanie, reducing her to a mere object in their grotesque sex game. It was this dehumanizing treatment that ultimately led to her silence, permanently. As the community of Charlottesville grappled with the shock of such a heinous act occurring in their midst, the public watched in horror as the details of the case were laid bare, from the bloodstains in the basement to the disturbing entries in Melanie's diary. The Hartsfelds' motive was clear: to protect their secret at all costs. Their fear of exposure drove them to conspire against Melanie, leading to a brutal act of violence that would end her life and shatter the tranquility of Charlottesville. As the trial approached, legal experts weighed in on the case, speculating on the outcome and the potential sentences. The Hartsfelds faced the possibility of life in prison, a stark contrast to their previous lives of prestige and privilege. The case served as a grim reminder of the darkness that can lurk behind closed doors, even in the most seemingly idyllic of settings. The police, after a meticulous investigation, pieced together the evidence that pointed unequivocally to the family's guilt in the murder of Melanie Varela. The day of reckoning came when law enforcement officials, armed with irrefutable proof, arrested James, Paula, and Kevin Hartsfeld. The scene was one of stark reality, as the family, once respected members of the community, were handcuffed and taken into custody. The surprise and resignation on their faces were palpable, a stark contrast to their previous academic and social standing. As the news of the arrest spread, local media outlets prepared to broadcast the story, drawing parallels to other infamous family crime sagas. The coverage was thorough, with journalists providing in-depth analysis of the case's impact on the small Virginia town. The victim's family, who had held onto hope from their home in Sherbrooke, Quebec, were now faced with a mix of relief and sorrow. The truth brought closure, but also a deep sense of loss for Melanie, whose aspirations and kindness were remembered by all who knew her. In the solemn halls of the Charlottesville courthouse, the trial of the Hartsfeld family unfolded like a narrative ripped from the pages of a crime thriller, capturing the rapt attention of the area, ensuring that not a single detail of the proceedings would escape the public eye. District Attorney Tina Arundel, known for her prosecutorial acumen, presented the case against the Hartsfelds with precision and clarity. The courtroom hummed on every word as she recounted the sordid details of the relationships between Melanie Varela and each member of the family, painting a picture of a household ensnared in its own web of deceit. Defense attorney Anne-Marie Gooseneck, renowned for her tenacious courtroom strategies, mounted a vigorous defense. She challenged the prosecution's narrative, suggesting that the evidence was circumstantial and the investigation flawed. Her arguments were crafted to sow doubt in the minds of the jurors, but the weight of the evidence was formidable. The prosecution's case was bolstered by the discovery of Melanie's diary, which became the silent witness to the tragedy. It revealed the intimate and exploitative nature of her relationships with James, Paula, and Kevin Hartsfeld, and the existence of a macabre scorecard that documented their encounters. As the trial progressed, the media coverage intensified. Local news outlets like WVIR-NBC 29 featured nightly segments, dissecting each day's testimony and offering expert legal analysis. The case had all the elements of a primetime drama: passion, betrayal, and a quest for justice. The victim's family, who had traveled from Sherbrooke, Quebec, sat in dignified grief, their presence a constant reminder of the life so brutally taken. They listened intently as the prosecution spoke of Melanie's aspirations and her vibrant spirit, now forever silenced. After days of testimony and deliberation, the moment of truth arrived. The jury, having weighed the evidence, found the Hartsfelds guilty on all counts. The sentence was swift and severe, reflecting the gravity of their crimes. The courtroom erupted in a cacophony of emotion as the verdict was read. The trial's conclusion brought closure to some, but for others, questions lingered. Had justice been served? Could anything compensate for the loss of a young woman with such promise? The Hartsfeld case would remain a topic of discussion in law schools, on social media platforms like Twitter, and in the quiet conversations of those who call Charlottesville home. As the gavel struck for the last time, the case of Melanie Varela closed, leaving behind a legacy of cautionary tales about the dangers of secrets and the pursuit of truth. The trial, a stark tableau of the consequences of unchecked desire and duplicity, left an indelible mark on all who witnessed it. The aftermath of the Hartsfeld trial left an indelible mark on the community of Charlottesville. The once respected family faced the stark reality of their actions, as the gavel's final echo signified the end of their saga of a world where the pursuit of truth met the darkest human deeds. The police, lauded for their unwavering dedication, continued to serve as guardians of justice, their resolve strengthened by the case's outcome. The victim's family, hailing from the serene town of Cherbourg, Quebec, embarked on a painful journey toward healing, their quest for closure intertwined with the memory of Melanie's vibrant life and tragic end. As the Hartsfelds began their sentences, the ripple effects of the trial extended beyond the courtroom. In Charlottesville, life slowly resumed its rhythm, but the shadows cast by the trial lingered. The case became a fixture in the town's lore, a cautionary tale of how secrets can unravel the fabric of a family and a community. The story of Melanie Varela and the Hartsfelds would not be forgotten, serving as a somber reminder of the fragility of trust and the price of deception. The case of Melanie Varela's murder sent shockwaves through Charlottesville, Virginia, in June of 1999. This true crime story exposed the depths of human deception and the tragic consequences that ensued. Isabella "Bella" Sanderson, a vibrant and ambitious 30-year-old woman, owned a small clothing boutique in the city of Pittsburgh, California back in June of 2004. Her boutique, known simply as Bella's Boutique, was a hidden gem in the local fashion scene. With an impeccable taste for fashion and a fierce sense of independence, Bella became a fascinating figure in the community. As the summer of 2004 unfolded, Bella's life was filled with dreams and aspirations. She constantly envisioned a future brimming with success and adventure. Despite being 4 months pregnant, she remained determined to make her boutique thrive. Friends and family admired her unapologetic confidence, but little did they know that it would eventually lead to her untimely demise. To complicate matters further, Bella's own mother-in-law, Sophia, harbored a deep resentment towards her. Sophia, a woman known for her controlling nature, couldn't stand Bella's independent spirit. She saw her as a threat to the family's legacy and was determined to eliminate her from their lives. On that fateful night in June, Bella's life took a tragic turn. The details surrounding her murder were as chilling as they are perplexing. The investigation into her death would uncover a series of shocking revelations, shedding light on the dark secrets that lay beneath the surface of this seemingly idyllic suburban community. In the quiet neighborhood of Pittsburgh, California, tragedy struck on a sunny day in June. Isabella "Bella" Sanderson, a vivacious 30-year-old boutique owner, met a gruesome end that would send shockwaves through the community. Bella was known for her impeccable taste and fierce independence. Her small clothing boutique was a local favorite, attracting fashion enthusiasts from all walks of life. She had a reputation for stirring up drama, with her unapologetic confidence and ambitious dreams of success and adventure. At the time of her death, Bella was 4 months pregnant, adding an even more heartbreaking layer to the already devastating story. On that fateful day, Bella's husband, Robert Sanderson Jr., made a horrifying discovery. The warmth of the sun was in stark contrast to the chilling scene that awaited him. As he approached his middle-class residence, fear and confusion washed over him. He stumbled upon the lifeless body of his beloved wife, her once vibrant spirit extinguished. The shock of the discovery was palpable. Robert, overwhelmed by grief, was unsure of how to process the gruesome scene before him. The police were immediately called to the scene, and the investigation into Bella's death began. In June of 2004, media outlets were quick to pick up on the tragedy. Local newspapers, such as the Pittsburgh Gazette, dedicated coverage to the case. Television news stations, like KGO Channel 7 News, aired special reports detailing the events surrounding Bella's murder. The community was captivated by the unfolding story, desperate for answers and justice. As investigators combed through the evidence, they discovered a complex web of relationships that would become the focal point of their investigation. The love triangle between Bella, her husband Robert, and his secret lover quickly became a central piece of the puzzle. The tension between these individuals, combined with the involvement of Bella's own mother-in-law, added an even darker twist to the already tragic tale. With each passing day, the details of Bella's untimely demise became more and more publicized. The community mourned the loss of a vibrant young woman, while simultaneously grappling with the shocking and disturbing nature of the crime. The investigation continued, fueled by the determination to bring justice to Bella and her unborn child. The swift arrival of the police at the scene of Bella Sanderson's tragic demise in June 2004 sent shockwaves through the quiet, middle-class neighborhood of Pittsburgh, California. Detective Johnson and Officer Ramirez, the dedicated investigators assigned to the case, wasted no time in assessing the chilling crime scene. As they approached the serene surroundings where Bella's lifeless body lay, a sense of urgency filled the air. The investigators were met with a gruesome sight. Traces of blood stained the once peaceful neighborhood, serving as a stark reminder of the violence that had unfolded. The method of murder, 2 gunshot wounds to the chest, added an eerie layer of mystery to the already perplexing case. With a meticulous attention to detail, the police meticulously combed the area for any potential clues. Utilizing advanced forensic techniques, they gathered evidence that would prove crucial in piecing together the puzzle of Bella's untimely demise. Every inch of the crime scene was scrutinized, from the surrounding houses and streets to the smallest fragments of evidence. Local residents were interviewed, their statements providing valuable insights into the events leading up to Bella's tragic end. The investigators delved into Bella's personal life, exploring her relationships and potential motives for her murder. Rumors of a love triangle involving Bella's husband and her own mother-in-law began to circulate, adding a layer of complexity to the case. As the investigation progressed, the media frenzy surrounding the case intensified. News outlets across picked up the story, captivated by the twists and turns of this real-life tragedy. The small clothing boutique owned by Bella became a focal point, with reporters flocking to the scene to capture the essence of the vibrant woman whose life had been cut short. In their pursuit of justice, Detective Johnson and Officer Ramirez left no stone unturned. They consulted experts in ballistics, forensics, and psychology, hoping to gain further insights into the mind of the killer. The search for answers became a race against time, as the public demanded answers and Bella's loved ones sought closure. The initial focus of the investigation turned towards Robert Sanderson Jr., the husband of the late Bella Sanderson. Robert, a charming and influential figure in the community, was the owner of a local bike shop that had gained popularity among cycling enthusiasts in Contra Costa County. As the police delved deeper into the case, they sought to unravel the enigma surrounding Robert's potential involvement in the murder of his wife. Detective Johnson and Officer Ramirez, the dedicated investigators assigned to the case, meticulously interrogated Robert. The room was tense, with the air heavy with anticipation as they probed for any signs of deceit or motive. Robert's demeanor fluctuated throughout the questioning, displaying a range of emotions that left the investigators both intrigued and suspicious. During the intense interrogation, Robert's responses were a mix of anger and calmness, further adding to the complexity of the case. The investigators were aware of his reputation for manipulation, and they were determined to uncover any hidden truths that lay beneath his charismatic facade. They delved into his personal life, exploring his relationship with Bella and any potential motives that could have driven him to commit such a heinous act. As the investigation progressed, the police discovered a series of text messages exchanged between Robert and a mysterious individual known only as MC. The messages hinted at a clandestine affair, raising questions about the nature of Robert's relationship with Marco Castrati, a regular at the bike shop. Marco, a prominent figure in the community and the owner of a renowned Italian restaurant, had been a big investor in Robert Jr.'s bike shop. With each passing day, the investigators grew more determined to crack the case wide open, bringing justice to the memory of Bella Sanderson. The small community of Pittsburgh was left reeling from the shocking events that had unfolded within its peaceful confines. As the investigation continued, the police painstakingly gathered evidence, leaving no stone unturned in their pursuit of the truth. Sophia Sanderson, age 65, the mother of Robert Jr., became the focus of the investigation as the second suspect in the murder of Bella Sanderson. A woman of refined taste and extravagant lifestyle, Sophia was no stranger to the glitz and glamour of the luxurious life. However, beneath her polished exterior lay a web of secrets and hidden motives. As the police delved into Sophia's connections to the crime, they discovered a tangled web of financial straying. Despite her outward appearance of wealth and luxury and her pension as a retired nurse, Sophia was burdened by a mountain of credit card debt. Her extravagant spending habits had caught up with her, and she found herself in a desperate situation. It was during this time of financial turmoil that Bella's murder occurred. The police began to question whether Sophia's mounting debt had driven her to commit such a heinous act. They meticulously combed through her financial records, searching for any evidence that could link her to the crime. As they dug deeper, the investigators uncovered a series of suspicious transactions in the weeks leading up to the murder. Large sums of money had been withdrawn from Sophia's bank account, with no clear explanation as to where the funds had gone. The police traced these transactions to a secret offshore account, raising even more questions about Sophia's involvement in Bella's death. The investigation took a dramatic turn when the police discovered a hidden compartment in Sophia's closet. Inside, they found a collection of newspaper clippings detailing the scandalous affairs of wealthy individuals in the area. These clippings, meticulously organized and annotated, hinted at a secret side to Sophia's already dark life. The police theorized that Sophia had become obsessed with the lives of the rich and famous, using their scandals and misfortunes as inspiration for her own twisted game. They believed that Bella's murder was not only a means to protect her family's reputation, but also a way for Sophia to live out her own twisted fantasies. As the investigation continued, the police dug deeper into Sophia's past, uncovering a trail of deceit and manipulation. They discovered that she had a history of using her charm and cunning to manipulate those around her, bending them to her will. This revelation only fueled their suspicions of her involvement in Bella's murder. In the coming weeks, the police would delve further into Sophia's connections and unravel the truth behind Bella's tragic death, riding hard on the shocking twists and turns of the investigation. As the investigation into the tragic murder of Isabella Bella Sanderson intensified, the authorities meticulously combed through the evidence, determined to uncover the truth behind this heinous crime. Every detail, no matter how seemingly insignificant, was scrutinized in their pursuit of justice. One crucial piece of evidence that emerged was the discovery of 2 tickets to a matinee showing of the renowned musical Cats. These tickets, bearing the names of Bella's husband, Robert Sanderson Jr., and a man known as Diego, were found at the crime scene. The investigators immediately recognized the significance of this find, as it provided a potential lead in their quest to unravel the mystery surrounding Bella's untimely demise. The date on the tickets indicated that the fateful outing was planned for June of 2004. As the investigators delved deeper into the connection between Robert Jr. and Diego, they discovered that Diego was the older brother of Bella. This revelation added a new layer of complexity to the case, raising questions about the nature of their relationship and the potential motives behind Bella's murder. Furthermore, the investigators meticulously examined the theater where the Cats' performance was scheduled to take place. The historic Fox Theater in downtown Oakland, known for its stunning architecture and grandeur, had been the chosen venue for this particular matinee. The theater's management cooperated fully with the authorities, providing access to surveillance footage and assisting in the identification of potential witnesses. As the authorities worked tirelessly to piece together the puzzle surrounding Bella's murder, they remained steadfast in their commitment to uncover the truth. The discovery of the Cats' tickets had opened up a new avenue of investigation, shedding light on the intricate web of relationships and potential motives that surrounded this chilling crime. Diego Bosque, the older brother of Bella Sanderson, emerged as another suspect in the investigation. Diego, known for his fiery temper and unwavering loyalty, held deep suspicions about Bella's marriage to Robert Jr. and harbored a strong disdain for Sophia. However, the police uncovered shocking evidence that would send shockwaves through the community. During the course of their investigation, the police discovered secret, explicit text messages exchanged between Diego and Robert Sanderson Jr., Bella's husband. These messages revealed a clandestine sexual relationship between the two men, a relationship that had been kept hidden from everyone, including Bella. The messages were very graphic in nature and described late-night rendezvous in various parks around Contra Costa County. The revelation of this secret relationship sent shockwaves through the community as it challenged the perception of loyalty and betrayal. Friends and family members were left dumbfounded, struggling to reconcile the image they had of Diego and Robert Jr. with the shocking reality that had been uncovered. The local media quickly picked up on the story, with headlines screaming about the scandalous affair that had emerged in the midst of Bella's murder investigation. The police, now faced with the task of unraveling the complex web of relationships surrounding Bella's death, intensified their interrogation of Diego. The third-grade vocabulary level was employed, ensuring that the questions were easily understood by all parties involved. Diego, torn between protecting his sister's memory and his own lover, was visibly shaken during the questioning. His anger and desperation were palpable as he attempted to navigate the treacherous waters of the investigation. As the investigation continued, the police delved deeper into the connection between Diego and Robert. They analyzed phone records, cross-referenced text messages, and interviewed acquaintances who might shed light on the nature of their relationship. The evidence was meticulously gathered, ensuring that no stone was left unturned in the pursuit of justice. The community of Pittsburgh, California, was left reeling from the shocking revelations that had come to light. The murder of Bella Sanderson had not only exposed a twisted love triangle, but had also shattered the illusion of a close-knit community. The once peaceful neighborhood now found itself at the center of a media frenzy, with reporters from local news outlets descending upon the area to cover the sensational story. The shocking truth behind Bella Sanderson's murder in June of 2004 was finally revealed, shedding light on a twisted plot that unfolded in the quiet city of Pittsburgh, California. After months of meticulous investigation, the police unraveled an intricate web of deception, leading to the arrest of Sophia Sanderson, the 65-year-old mother-in-law of the victim. Driven by a toxic combination of jealousy and pride, Sophia orchestrated a cunning plan to eliminate both her son's lover and his sister, her daughter-in-law. The motive behind this heinous act was rooted in Sophia's deep resentment towards Bella's intrusion into her family's affairs and her son's illicit sexual relationship with Diego Bosque, Bella's older brother. Sophia's desire to maintain control over her son, Robert Jr., and safeguard her family's reputation played a pivotal role in her decision to carry out this macabre scheme. With Diego stealing away her son for secret sex and Bella's pregnancy, threatening her son's financial support, Sophia saw no other way to protect her carefully constructed facade. The police uncovered a trail of evidence that pointed directly at Sophia's involvement in the murder. The discovery of a meticulously planned alibi, consisting of a fake doctor's appointment and a series of phone calls to create a false timeline, revealed the calculated nature of her actions. Additionally, surveillance footage from a nearby store captured Sophia purchasing a gun, the same weapon used to end Bella's life. As the authorities closed in on Sophia, her carefully constructed facade crumbled before her eyes. The shock and disbelief on her face as she was arrested mirrored the feelings of the community, who had known her as a respected member of society. As the community of Pittsburgh tries to make sense of this tragic event, the memory of Bella Sanderson will forever be etched in their minds. Her vibrant spirit and ambitious dreams will serve as a reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that can lurk within the hearts of those closest to us. The courtroom was abuzz with anticipation as the trial of Sophia Sanderson, accused of orchestrating the murder of her son's lover and wife, reached its climax. District Attorney Tabitha Quasimodo, with her commanding presence and sharp legal mind, led the prosecution's case against Sophia. The defense, represented by attorney Ariel Cruz Roja, fought tirelessly to cast doubt on the evidence presented. The trial unfolded against the backdrop of a nation captivated by true crime stories. In the courtroom, Attorney Quasimodo meticulously laid out the evidence against Sophia. She presented phone records showing suspicious conversations between Sophia and an unidentified individual on the day of the murder. The prosecution also introduced the murder weapon, a .45 caliber handgun, which was traced back to Sophia's possession. The ballistics expert testified that the bullets recovered from Bella's body matched those fired from the gun. To further strengthen their case, the prosecution called upon witnesses who had observed Sophia's erratic behavior leading up to the murder. A neighbor testified that they had seen Sophia lurking around Bella's boutique, casting a sinister shadow over the otherwise peaceful neighborhood. The defense, however, argued that these witnesses were unreliable and their testimonies should be dismissed. As the trial progressed, the courtroom was filled with tension and emotion. Bella's grieving family, clad in black, listened intently to every word uttered. The victims' friends, still grappling with the shock of their loss, sought solace in each other's presence. The media, hungry for sensational stories, swarmed the courthouse, capturing every moment for the evening news and front-page headlines. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. Sophia Sanderson was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom erupted in a mix of relief, sorrow, and closure. The impact of the verdict reverberated through the lives of all involved, forever altering the course of their futures. In the aftermath of the trial, true crime geeks debated the motives and psychology of Sophia, dissecting her actions and attempting to understand what drove her to commit such a heinous crime. The story of Bella Sanderson's murder became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath even the most seemingly idyllic lives. Following the conclusion of the trial, Robert Jr., Diego, and Sophia were left to grapple with the daunting task of moving forward. The events surrounding Bella's murder had forever altered their lives, leaving them to navigate a complex web of emotions and rebuild their shattered worlds. Robert Jr., once the charismatic owner of a bike shop, found himself at a crossroads. The trial had exposed the dark secrets of his past, including his illicit relationship with Diego. The revelation had left him questioning his own sexuality and struggling to come to terms with the consequences of his actions. With his reputation tarnished and his business suffering, Robert Jr. faced an uphill battle to regain the trust of his community. Diego, Bella's older brother, was consumed by guilt and remorse. His secret sexuality relationship with Robert had not only betrayed his sister, but also implicated him in the murder plot. The trial had laid bare his darkest secrets, leaving him isolated and ostracized from his family, who did not accept his sexuality. With no one to turn to, Diego found solace in therapy and support groups, working tirelessly to rebuild his life and find redemption. Sophia, the mastermind behind the murder plot, faced the harsh reality of her actions. The trial had shattered her carefully constructed facade, exposing her as a manipulative and calculating individual. Her once extravagant lifestyle had crumbled under the weight of her debt, leaving her in prison. With no one left to protect her, Sophia retreated into a life of isolation and regret. As the months turned into years, the wounds left by Bella's murder slowly began to heal. The victims' families, torn apart by grief, found solace in support groups and counseling. The community rallied around them, offering a shoulder to lean on and a listening ear. Slowly but surely, life in Pittsburgh returned to a semblance of normalcy. And thus, the twisted love triangle that ensnared Isabella Bella Sanderson came to a close. In the city of Pittsburgh, California, in June of 2004, a story of passion, betrayal, and tragedy unfolded. Bella's life was tragically cut short, leaving behind a community forever changed by the darkness that lurked within their midst. Join us next time on True Crime Case Files as we delve into another chilling tale of human nature's darkest depths. This is the story of Adam Johnson, a loving husband and father whose life was tragically cut short in a deadly love triangle. Adam Johnson was a 29-year-old man who lived in Alpharetta, Georgia, with his wife Rebecca and their twin boys Modelo and Reno. Adam was an architect who loved designing buildings that were good for the environment. He wanted to help the planet by creating homes and offices that used less energy and were made from sustainable materials. Adam went to Georgia Tech and graduated with a degree in architecture. He was very proud of his education and often talked about how much he learned there. Adam was working on his first major project when he died. This project was very important to him because he believed it would help make the community a better place to live. Adam's dream was to create beautiful buildings that would last a long time and not harm the environment. He wanted his children to grow up in a world where they could enjoy clean air and natural beauty. He often told his friends about his plans and hopes for the future, sharing his vision of a better world. In the days before his death, Adam was very busy but also very excited. He was working late nights and early mornings to make sure his project was perfect. He often talked to his colleagues about new ideas and ways to improve his designs. He even stayed up late reading the latest architecture magazines to stay informed about new trends and technologies. Adam lived in a nice neighborhood in Alpharetta, where people knew each other and felt safe. He liked to jog in the mornings and was often seen at the local Starbucks, where he would get his favorite drink, a caramel macchiato. He also enjoyed watching football games on TV and was a big fan of the Georgia Bulldogs. Adam's personality and dreams made him a special person. He was loved by many and had big plans for the future. His dedication to his work and his family showed how much he cared about making the world a better place. Adam's tragic death was a shock to everyone who knew him, as it ended the life of a man who had so much more to give. On August 15, 2013, at around 9:00 a.m., the body of Adam Johnson was discovered in his home in Alpharetta, Georgia. The person who found him was his neighbor, Josephus Matthews. Josephus often checked in on the Johnson family because they were good friends and lived next door. That morning, Josephus noticed that the front door of the Johnson house was slightly open, which seemed strange. Feeling uneasy, he decided to go inside and see if everything was okay. As Josephus entered the house, he called out Adam's name, but there was no answer. He walked through the hallway and into the living room, where he made a horrific discovery. Adam was blindfolded and tied to a chair, with multiple stab wounds all over his body. The room was a mess with blood on the floor and walls, indicating a violent struggle had taken place. Josephus was in shock and couldn't believe what he was seeing. His hands shook as he pulled out his phone to call 911. The operator answered, and Josephus tried to stay calm as he described what he had found. His voice trembled, but he managed to give the operator all the necessary details. He said, "I'm at my neighbor's house and he's been stabbed. He's tied to a chair, and there's blood everywhere. Please send help quickly." The police arrived at the scene within minutes. They found Josephus standing in the hallway, visibly shaken. The officers asked Josephus to wait outside while they secured the scene. As they moved through the house, they noted the signs of a struggle and the violent nature of the attack. The paramedics arrived soon after the police and confirmed that Adam was dead. Josephus was asked to give a statement about what he had seen and how he had found Adam. He described how he had entered the house, found the body, and immediately called 911. Josephus was still in shock and had a hard time processing what had happened. He kept repeating, "I can't believe this. Adam was such a good man." The news of Adam's death spread quickly through the neighborhood. People were shocked and saddened to hear that such a kind and caring person had been murdered in such a brutal way. The local news stations like WSB-TV began reporting on the crime, and the community was left in a state of fear and disbelief. The discovery of Adam Johnson's body marked the beginning of a tragic and complex investigation. On the morning of August 15, 2013, the Alpharetta police quickly arrived at the scene where Adam Johnson's body was found. Brother and sister police team officers Clarissa Brown and Dean Davis were among the first responders. They were known for their thoroughness and dedication. Officer Brown, a seasoned detective with a calm demeanor, and Officer Davis, a younger but highly observant officer, were both shocked by the brutality of the scene. The crime scene was in Adam's living room. Blood was splattered across the floor and walls, and it was clear that a violent struggle had taken place. Adam was found blindfolded and tied to a chair with multiple stab wounds. The most severe wound was a single fatal stab to the heart. This indicated that the attack was personal and not a random act of violence. The detectives began their investigation by securing the crime scene and making sure no evidence was disturbed. They used yellow crime scene tape to cordon off the area and started taking photographs of the scene from every angle. They collected samples of the blood found at the scene, hoping to find DNA evidence that could lead them to the killer. Officer Brown noticed a partially burned note in the fireplace. She carefully retrieved it with tweezers and placed it in an evidence bag. The note appeared to be a letter from Adam, expressing his intention to leave his wife Rebecca and take custody of their children. This piece of evidence suggested a possible motive for the crime. The detectives also used luminol to check for any hidden bloodstains. Luminol is a chemical that glows when it comes into contact with blood, even if the blood has been cleaned up. They found more bloodstains leading from the living room to the kitchen, indicating that the struggle might have started there. Officer Davis checked the doors and windows for signs of forced entry but found none. This suggested that Adam knew his attacker and had let them into the house willingly. The police also dusted for fingerprints and collected any that they found, hoping to match them to a suspect. The police worked tirelessly to gather all possible evidence. They interviewed neighbors, including Josephus Matthews, who had discovered the body. Josephus described Adam as a friendly and caring person who had no known enemies. This made the crime even more puzzling. As the day turned into night, the police continued their investigation, determined to find justice for Adam Johnson. The crime scene was gruesome, and the detectives knew they had a tough case ahead. They hoped the evidence they gathered would lead them to the person responsible for this horrific crime. Rebecca Johnson, Adam's 27-year-old wife, was the first suspect in the investigation. Rebecca was known for being creative and outgoing, with a vibrant social life. However, her relationship with Adam had been strained for some time. Friends and family mentioned that she seemed unhappy and distant, and rumors about her having an affair were common. Rebecca was a part-time artist who enjoyed painting and attending local art events. Raised Methodist, she was also recently involved with a group called Zen and Philosophy. This group claimed to be a spiritual community with its teachings based on the 1999 Disney Channel original movies and a girl of the 21st century. Others simply called it a cult. Well, we'll let you decide.
Hello, I am Maureen Zaftrapines, agent of Lady Zinnan Carr. Today I invite you to explore Xenon philosophy, a futuristic vision and a prophecy of humanity's evolution towards cosmic enlightenment. Through chanting of Lord Protozo's sacred lyrics, we attune our souls to the cosmic frequencies, preparing ourselves for the journey towards higher realms of existence. Our sacred branding of the letter Z symbolizes our commitment to Xenon philosophy as we embark on the path of spiritual enlightenment. We are not just individuals, but a cosmic community united by our shared vision. As we journey towards the stars, let us embrace the teachings of the Xenon philosophy, for within its wisdom lies the key to unlocking the mysteries of the universe and the boundless potential of our souls. May the light of Lady Xenon guide us on our cosmic voyage. Cetus Lupitus.
Anyway, Rebecca's sudden interest in Zen and philosophy worried her friends and family. They felt she was becoming more withdrawn and influenced by the group's teachings. When the police questioned Rebecca, she appeared anxious and evasive. She admitted that her marriage to Adam was troubled and confessed to having an affair with Jimmy Lewis Carter, a 23-year-old ex-football player at Georgia Tech. Rebecca explained that she met Jimmy through Zen and philosophy and that they had become close. She bluntly said Jimmy was much better in bed than her husband. Despite this admission, Rebecca denied any involvement in Adam's murder. During the interrogation, Rebecca's nervousness was evident. She fidgeted with her hands and avoided eye contact with the detectives. Officer Brown asked Rebecca about the night of the murder, but her answers were vague and inconsistent. Rebecca claimed she was at home alone, which the police found suspicious given the nature of her relationship with Adam. The detectives also questioned Rebecca about the partially burned note found in the fireplace. The note indicated that Adam planned to leave her and take their children, Modelo and Reno. When asked about this, Rebecca became visibly upset and started to cry. She insisted that she did not know about Adam's plans and that she would never harm him. The police searched Rebecca's phone and computer, looking for any clues. They found numerous text messages between her and Jimmy, discussing their relationship and their dissatisfaction with their current lives. However, there was no direct evidence linking Rebecca to the murder. Rebecca's involvement with Zen and philosophy also raised questions. The group had a reputation for encouraging extreme behavior among its members. The detectives wondered if the group's influence had played a role in Adam's death. They decided to investigate further, looking into the activities and teachings of Xenon philosophy. Despite her nervous demeanor and inconsistent statements, there was not enough concrete evidence to arrest Rebecca at that time. The police continued to investigate other leads and suspects, hoping to find the truth behind Adam Johnson's tragic death. Jimmy Lewis Carter, a 23-year-old ex-football player at Georgia Tech, was the second suspect in Adam Johnson's murder case. Known for his charisma and athleticism, Jimmy had a history of short-term relationships. He was identified as Rebecca Johnson's lover and was the one who introduced her to the Xenon philosophy group. This group, often considered a cult, had a significant influence on both Rebecca and Jimmy. When the police brought Jimmy in for questioning, he appeared calm and confident. His relaxed demeanor contrasted sharply with the serious nature of the investigation. Detective Clarissa Brown and Officer Dean Davis conducted the interview, hoping to learn more about his relationship with Rebecca and his possible involvement in Adam's death. Jimmy was cooperative and answered all the questions without hesitation. He admitted to having an affair with Rebecca and confirmed that they met through Xenon philosophy. Jimmy described Rebecca as someone who was unhappy in her marriage and looking for something more in life. He claimed that their relationship was purely emotional and physical, with no intention of causing harm to anyone. Detective Brown asked Jimmy about his whereabouts on the night of August 14, 2013. Jimmy confidently stated that he was with a friend at a local Longhorn steakhouse and provided the names of several friends who could confirm his alibi. The police followed up on this information and found that his alibi checked out. Jimmy was indeed at practice, far from the scene of the crime. Despite his solid alibi, the detectives pressed Jimmy further, trying to uncover any additional information. They asked him about Xenon philosophy and its influence on him and Rebecca. Jimmy explained that Xenon philosophy was about finding inner peace and spiritual enlightenment. He denied that the group had any radical or violent teachings. The detectives also asked Jimmy about the text messages between him and Rebecca. The messages showed their dissatisfaction with their current lives and hinted at plans for the future. Jimmy explained that they were just talking about their dreams and aspirations, not planning anything harmful. Throughout the interrogation, Jimmy remained composed and dismissive of the police's suspicions. He showed no signs of guilt or nervousness, which made the detectives wonder if he was telling the truth or just a very good liar. However, without concrete evidence linking him to the crime, they had no choice but to let him go. As Jimmy left the police station, the detectives continued to feel uneasy. His confidence and cooperation were unusual for someone under suspicion of such a serious crime. While they could not detain him, Jimmy remained a person of interest in the investigation. The police continued to gather evidence, hoping to find the truth behind Adam Johnson's tragic death. On August 20, 2013, 5 days after Adam Johnson's body was found, the Alpharetta police received a crucial tip. It was a hot, humid afternoon when a local resident called the station. She had found something suspicious while walking her dog, Michael Cartino Winchester, in a nearby park. The park was a popular spot in Alpharetta, known for its scenic trails and family-friendly atmosphere. Emma described finding a bloody knife hidden under some bushes near the edge of the park. The knife seemed out of place, and she immediately thought it might be connected to Adam's murder. Officer Dean Davis and Detective Clarissa Brown rushed to the park to investigate the tip. They arrived at the scene and carefully retrieved the knife, placing it in an evidence bag to avoid contamination. Back at the police station, forensic experts examined the knife. They discovered traces of Adam's blood on the blade and a partial fingerprint on the handle. The fingerprint was sent to the lab for analysis. The detectives hoped it would match someone in their database or one of their suspects. The discovery of the knife was a significant breakthrough in the case. The police felt a renewed sense of urgency as they waited for the lab results. 2 days later, on August 22, the lab results came back. The fingerprint on the knife matched Karen Blanchard, Rebecca Johnson's best friend, and a member of Xenon philosophy. Karen was known for her aggressive behavior and strong loyalty to Rebecca. The police immediately brought her in for questioning. The discovery of the knife and the fingerprint evidence put Karen under intense scrutiny. The police believed they were closer to solving the case, but they needed more information to piece everything together. They continued to investigate Karen's involvement, hoping to uncover the full truth behind Adam Johnson's murder. Karen Blanchard, Rebecca Johnson's best friend, became a primary suspect after her fingerprint was found on the knife used to kill Adam Johnson. Karen, a 28-year-old with a history of aggressive behavior, was fiercely protective of Rebecca. She was also an ex-lover of Jimmy Lewis Carter and a member of Xenon Philosophy. On August 22, 2013, after the fingerprint analysis, Detective Clarissa Brown and Officer Dean Davis brought Karen in for questioning. Karen, known for her strong-willed personality, initially tried to maintain her composure. However, the evidence against her was mounting, and the detectives were determined to uncover the truth. During the interrogation, Karen admitted to having sex with Rebecca but denied any involvement in Adam's murder. She claimed that the knife must have been planted to frame her. Detective Brown, with her calm and methodical approach, pressed Karen for more details about her activities on the night of August 14. Karen's story was inconsistent. She initially claimed to be at home alone, but later admitted to meeting with Rebecca and Jimmy. She described the meeting as a casual get-together, insisting they only discussed their frustrations with their current lives. However, the detectives were skeptical, especially given her strong loyalty to Rebecca and the presence of her fingerprint on the murder weapon. Karen's involvement with Xenon Philosophy also raised red flags. The group, often viewed as a cult, had a reputation for promoting extreme loyalty among its members. Detective Brown asked Karen if the group had influenced her actions, but Karen vehemently denied it, saying Xenon Philosophy was about finding inner peace, not violence. As the questioning continued, Karen became more agitated. Her defensive behavior only increased the detective's suspicions. Officer Davis, known for his sharp observational skills, noticed Karen's hands trembling slightly, a sign of her growing anxiety. The police also searched Karen's home, looking for any additional evidence. They found several items linking her to Rebecca and Jimmy, including text messages and meeting notes related to Xenon Philosophy. While these items did not directly implicate Karen in the murder, they showed the close connection between the three suspects. Despite Karen's denials, the evidence against her was compelling. The fingerprint on the knife, her inconsistent alibi, and her aggressive loyalty to Rebecca all pointed to her potential involvement in Adam's death. The detectives believed Karen knew more than she was willing to admit and continued to apply pressure, hoping she would crack under the weight of the evidence. The investigation into Karen Blanchard was a crucial step in solving the case. The police were closer than ever to uncovering the full story behind Adam Johnson's tragic death, but they needed to keep pushing to find the final piece of the puzzle. On August 25, 2013, after a thorough investigation, the police finally identified the murderer, Rebecca Johnson. The breakthrough came when detectives uncovered a series of deleted text messages on Rebecca's phone. These messages, recovered by forensic experts, revealed her desperation and fear of losing her children. Adam had discovered her affairs with Jimmy and Karen and planned to leave her, taking custody of their children, Modelo and Reno, because he did not want them to be raised in Xenon Philosophy. On the night of August 14, Rebecca had confronted Adam about his plans to leave. A heated argument ensued, escalating into a violent struggle. In a fit of rage and desperation, Rebecca blindfolded Adam, tied him to a chair, and stabbed him multiple times, delivering a fatal wound to his heart. She then attempted to stage the scene to look like a home invasion gone wrong. Detective Clarissa Brown and Officer Dean Davis pieced together the timeline of events from the recovered messages and other evidence. They presented their findings to the district attorney, who issued a warrant for Rebecca's arrest. On the morning of August 26, the police arrived at Rebecca's home. It was a tense moment as they knocked on the door. Rebecca answered, appearing calm but visibly nervous. The officers informed Rebecca of the charges against her and placed her under arrest. She was shocked and initially denied everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. As she was led away in handcuffs, her neighbors watched in disbelief. The once vibrant and outgoing woman was now at the center of a horrific crime. Rebecca's arrest brought a mix of emotions to the community. Adam's family, devastated by his loss, felt a sense of relief knowing the murderer had been caught. However, the revelation that Rebecca was responsible for his death added another layer of pain. Rebecca's children, Modelo and Reno, were taken into the care of Adam's parents. The community rallied around the family, offering support during this difficult time. The local news stations covered the arrest, highlighting the tragic turn of events. The investigation had been long and complex, but the dedication of Detective Brown, Officer Davis, and their colleagues ensured that justice was served. The evidence, combined with Rebecca's actions and the recovered messages, painted a clear picture of her guilt. Rebecca's arrest marked the end of a dark chapter in Alpharetta. The community hoped for healing and justice for Adam Johnson and his family. Rebecca Johnson's trial for the murder of her husband Adam began on November 15, 2013, in the Fulton County Courthouse. The courtroom was packed with reporters from local news stations like WSB-TV and concerned residents of Alpharetta. The trial drew significant attention due to the shocking details of the case. The prosecution, led by District Attorney James Morgan, age 45, presented a compelling argument. Known for his thorough and determined approach, Morgan meticulously laid out the evidence against Rebecca. He detailed the affair with Jimmy Lewis Carter, her involvement with Karen Blanchard, and the influence of Zinn on philosophy. He highlighted the recovered text messages, the forensic evidence, and the violent nature of Adam's murder. The defense, led by attorney Laura Simmons, age 38, attempted to paint a different picture. Simmons, known for her empathetic yet assertive style, argued that Rebecca was a victim of emotional abuse and manipulation. She claimed that Rebecca acted in self-defense and that her involvement with Zinn and philosophy had clouded her judgment. Simmons tried to cast doubt on the prosecution's timeline and the reliability of the recovered messages. Throughout the trial, Adam's family sat in the courtroom, visibly distressed by the proceedings. Jane and Robert Johnson, Adam's parents, watched every detail unfold with a mix of sorrow and anger. Their presence reminded everyone of the human cost of the crime. The jury deliberated for 2 days before reaching a verdict. On December 2, 2013, they found Rebecca Johnson guilty of first-degree murder. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read. Rebecca showed little emotion, staring blankly ahead. During sentencing, the judge addressed the court. She emphasized the gravity of the crime and the impact on Adam's family and the community. This was a senseless act driven by fear and desperation, she said. Rebecca was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Rebecca's conviction and sentencing were seen as a fair resolution by most, though some felt sympathy for her, considering the emotional turmoil she had been experiencing. The trial's outcome provided a measure of justice for Adam Johnson and his family, allowing them to begin the long process of healing. After Rebecca Johnson was sentenced to life in prison without parole, the lives of those involved in the case changed drastically. Adam Johnson's family, still grappling with their loss, tried to find a new sense of normalcy. Jane and Robert Johnson, Adam's parents, took in their grandchildren, Modelo and Reno. The children, now under their grandparents' care, slowly adjusted to their new life. The Johnsons received overwhelming support from the Alpharetta community. Local groups and neighbors organized fundraisers and events to help the family. Rebecca's incarceration left a void in the lives of her children. Despite the severity of her crime, they were allowed occasional supervised visits to the prison, arranged by Child Welfare Services. These visits were emotionally challenging, as the children struggled to understand why their mother was behind bars. Jane and Robert Johnson did their best to provide a stable, loving environment for Modelo and Reno, shielding them from the media frenzy surrounding the case. Jimmy Lewis Carter, Rebecca's lover and a central figure in the investigation, faced his own set of challenges. The media attention affected his football career at Georgia Tech. Although he was not charged with any crime, his involvement with Rebecca and Zinn on philosophy raised questions about his character. Jimmy decided to leave Georgia Tech and transferred to a smaller university to escape the scrutiny and rebuild his life. Karen Blanchard, Rebecca's best friend, also faced public backlash. Her aggressive defense of Rebecca and her involvement in the Zinn on philosophy group made her a controversial figure. After the trial, Karen distanced herself from the group and sought therapy to deal with the emotional fallout. She moved to a different state, hoping for a fresh start away from the memories of the case. Life after the trial was a period of adjustment and healing for everyone involved. While the pain of Adam Johnson's death could never be erased, his family and the community worked together to honor his memory and move forward. The story of Adam Johnson and the tragic events of August 2013 left an indelible stain on Alpharetta, reminding all of the importance of justice and community support in the face of tragedy. G.C. Harris was a 45-year-old man who lived in Albany, New York. He worked as an employee for the New York State government. G.C. was known for his friendly personality and his strong dedication to his family. People at work liked him because he was dependable and hardworking. He often helped others and was very active in his community. G.C.'s life was not without its challenges. He was blind, having lost his sight in his early 20s due to retinitis pigmentosa, a genetic disorder that affects the retina. Despite this, G.C. never let his blindness hold him back. He learned to navigate the world with the help of a cane and was highly independent. He yearned to be an example to others that a disability should not hold you back. G.C. lived with his wife, Jessica Turner Harris. They had been married for over 15 years. Jessica was a successful wedding planner who often organized community events. They had one son, Pikachu, age 10, and were going through IVF to have another. JC loved spending time with his family. He often took them to Washington Park and the Albany Pine Bush Preserve for picnics and nature walks. In the days before his death, JC was excited about a new project at work. He had just received a promotion and was looking forward to starting his new role. He was also planning a family vacation to Disney World in Florida. JC had bought new luggage from Macy's and was talking about the trip with his family. He loved spending time with his son and wanted to create lasting memories with them. In October 2014, JC's life seemed perfect. He had a loving family, a successful career, and plans for an exciting future. But behind the happy facade, trouble was brewing. JC was unaware of the dark secrets and hidden tensions that would soon turn his world upside down. His life, filled with hope and dreams, would be tragically cut short in a violent and shocking way. On October 14, 2014, it was a chilly Tuesday morning in Albany, New York. At around 8:30 a.m., Kevin Brown, a co-worker of J.C. Harris, arrived at the New York State Office building. Kevin had come in early to discuss a project with J.C. They had been working together on a new initiative for the state government. Kevin noticed that J.C.'s office door was slightly open, which was unusual for him. Kevin knocked on the door but got no response. Feeling uneasy, he pushed the door open and was immediately struck by a gruesome sight. J.C. was lying on the floor, surrounded by a pool of blood. His body was covered with stab wounds, and his eyes were gouged out. A bloody letter opener was lying next to him. The scene was horrifying and grotesque, unlike anything Kevin had ever seen. Kevin felt a wave of panic and fear. His hands trembled as he reached for his phone to call 911. His voice was shaky as he explained to the operator what he had found. Kevin was scared and could barely believe what he was seeing. He knew he had to stay calm and give the police all the information they needed. Within minutes, the Albany Police Department arrived at the scene. The first officers to arrive quickly secured the area and called for backup. Kevin, still in shock, sat down in a nearby chair as the officers began their investigation. He tried to answer their questions as best as he could, but his mind was racing. He couldn't understand who would do such a terrible thing to JC, who was well liked by everyone. News of the murder quickly spread through the office and the local community. People were shocked and saddened by the loss of JC, a man who had touched many lives with his kindness and dedication. The Albany Times-Union reported on the murder, and the story was also covered by local TV stations. JC's death left a deep impact on everyone who knew him. The violent and sudden nature of his murder shook the community, and people began to wonder who could have committed such a horrible crime. On October 14, 2014, the Albany Police Department responded quickly to the 911 call about J.C. Harris murder. Patrol officers were the first to arrive at the New York State Office building where J.C.'s body was found. They secured the area to ensure no evidence would be disturbed. They called for backup immediately. Detective Natalie Lawson and Detective Paul Johnson arrived soon after. Detective Lawson was known for a careful and detailed approach to investigations, while Detective Johnson was recognized for his sharp intuition and ability to read crime scenes. As they entered JC's office, they were met with a horrific sight. Blood was everywhere, on the floor, walls, and even the desk. Papers were scattered across the room, and the letter opener, the murder weapon, lay nearby, covered in blood. The brutality of the crime was shocking. Detective Lawson began to photograph the scene, while Detective Johnson examined the body. JC had been stabbed multiple times, and his eyes had been gouged out, indicating a crime of intense anger and betrayal. They knew this was not a random act of violence, but a targeted attack. The detectives collected evidence meticulously. They took samples of the blood, fingerprints from the door and desk, and gathered any other physical evidence that might help identify the murderer. They also collected JC's phone and computer to look for any clues about his recent activities and contacts. Forensic experts arrived to assist with the investigation. They used tools like luminol to detect any hidden bloodstains and special cameras to capture detailed images of the crime scene. The experts also examined the letter opener for any traces of DNA or fingerprints that could lead to the killer. As the investigation continued, Detective Lawson and Detective Johnson interviewed Kevin Brown, who had discovered the body. Kevin was still in shock but tried his best to provide any useful information. He described JC as a well-liked and respected colleague with no known enemies at work. The detectives also spoke to JC's other coworkers and friends. They learned about his recent promotion and his plans for a family vacation. Everyone described JC as a kind and dedicated person, making the crime even more puzzling. Detective Lawson and Detective Johnson knew they had to act fast. They needed to find out who had the motive and opportunity to kill JC. The pressure was on to solve the case and bring justice to JC and his grieving family. The gruesome crime scene provided many clues, but it would take careful analysis and keen investigative skills to uncover the truth behind the violent murder. Jessica Turner Harris, JC's wife, was the first suspect in the investigation. Jessica, 43, was a well-known wedding planner in Albany. She was successful and often organized big community events. Jessica was known for her sociable nature and friendly personality. However, despite their seemingly happy marriage, Jessica had doubts about JC's fidelity. Jessica had been aware of rumors about JC's possible affair. She had noticed changes in his behavior and had grown suspicious over time. Jessica loved her family deeply but couldn't shake off the feeling that something was wrong. This led the police to consider her as a possible suspect. Detectives Navely Lawson and Paul Johnson brought Jessica in for questioning. She appeared calm but clearly distressed about her husband's brutal murder. The detectives asked her about her relationship with JC and if she had noticed any changes in his behavior recently. Jessica admitted she had suspicions about JC having an affair but denied any involvement in his death. Jessica explained that on the night of the murder, she was at home with their son Pikachu. She provided details about their evening, saying they had dinner together and watched the movie Eyes Wide Shut before going to bed. The detectives checked her alibi by speaking with her son and looking at phone records. Everything seemed to match her story. Despite her calm demeanor, Jessica's emotions were evident. She was grieving the loss of her husband and struggling to understand why someone would kill him so brutally. The detectives noted her emotional state and continued to probe for more information. As part of the investigation, the police searched Jessica's belongings and found no evidence linking her directly to the crime. They also reviewed her financial records and found nothing suspicious. Jessica's friends and colleagues described her as a loving wife and mother, further supporting her innocence. However, the detectives couldn't ignore the fact that Jessica knew about JC's possible affair. They wondered if this knowledge could have driven her to commit the crime. They questioned her about her feelings toward JC and if she ever confronted him about the rumors. Jessica admitted she had confronted him once, but JC had denied everything. Jessica's cooperation with the investigation and lack of concrete evidence against her led the detectives to look at other suspects. While she remained a person of interest, the focus shifted to other individuals who might have had a motive to kill JC. The police were determined to find the truth. Jessica's story added another layer to the complex case, but without solid evidence, the detectives knew they had to keep looking for the real murderer. The investigation was far from over, and the detectives continued to search for answers. The second suspect in the investigation was Megan Turner, Jessica's younger sister. Megan, 28, was a freelance graphic designer living in Albany. She was outgoing and ambitious, often described as a person who sought validation and affection from older men. Megan was also known by another name, Dulcimer Geisha, her stage name as an exotic dancer at a local club. This part of her life was not widely known to her family and friends. Megan had a history of minor criminal behavior, including a few shoplifting incidents and a DUI from her early 20s. Her past raised red flags for the detectives, who wondered if her lifestyle could be connected to JC's murder. Megan often spent overnight stays at Jessica and JC's house, ostensibly to help Jessica design specialized website for her couples, but it became clear she had a closer relationship with JC than previously thought. Detectives Natalie Lawson and Paul Johnson brought Megan in for questioning. She seemed nervous but cooperative. The detectives asked her about her relationship with JC and her activities on the night of the murder. Megan admitted she was close to JC and often confided in him. She claimed she was at home alone on the night of the murder, working on a graphic design project for a local business. Megan's alibi was shaky, as she had no one to corroborate her story. The detectives probed deeper, asking about her work as Dulcimer Geisha and her criminal past. Megan became defensive but maintained her innocence. She insisted that she had nothing to do with JC's death and that their relationship was purely platonic. The detectives found evidence that Megan had been at JC's office the day before the murder, supposedly discussing a project with him behind closed doors. They also discovered text messages, described as flirty, between Megan and JC that suggested a more intimate relationship. The messages showed Megan expressing feelings of sexual attraction toward JC, who seemed to be trying to distance himself from her. Despite the evidence pointing to a possible motive, Megan continued to deny any involvement. She admitted to feeling hurt by JC's attempts to end their relationship, but claimed she would never harm him. The detectives noted her emotional responses and erratic behavior during the interrogation. The police searched Megan's apartment and found items linking her to her stage persona, but nothing directly connecting her to the murder. They continued to gather evidence and interview people who knew Megan, including colleagues at the graphic design firm and the club where she performed. As the investigation progressed, Megan remained a key suspect due to her close relationship with JC, her criminal past, and her emotional instability. However, without concrete evidence, the detectives knew they needed to keep digging. The truth behind JC's murder was still elusive, and the investigation was far from over. The third suspect in the investigation was Kevin Brown, a co-worker of JC Harris. Kevin, 40, worked in the same New York State office as JC. He was known to have a short temper and had made several complaints about JC's work style and methods. Kevin had been passed over for a promotion that JC received, causing tension between the two. Even more suspicious, Kevin was the one who discovered JC's body and the person to see him last before he died. Detectives Neville Lawson and Paul Johnson brought Kevin in for questioning. Kevin, who was tall with a gruff demeanor, seemed defensive from the start. The detectives asked him about his relationship with JC and his feelings about not getting the promotion. Kevin admitted he was frustrated but claimed he had no reason to harm JC. Kevin said that on the night of the murder, he was at home watching a football game between the New York Giants and the Philadelphia Eagles. He provided the names of friends who could confirm his alibi. The detectives checked with Kevin's friends, who confirmed his story. However, the detectives were not convinced and decided to dig deeper. Kevin had a history of workplace conflicts. He had been involved in several arguments with other coworkers and had even received a warning for his behavior. The detectives wondered if his anger toward JC could have escalated to violence. They looked into Kevin's past and found a history of minor offenses, including a bar fight from a few years ago. The police searched Kevin's apartment for any evidence that might link him to the murder. They found several knives, but none matched the letter opener used in the crime. They also examined his computer and phone records. Kevin had sent a few angry emails to JC in the past, but nothing that indicated a direct threat. During the interrogation, Kevin's responses were terse and defensive. He denied any involvement in JC's murder and insisted he had moved on from the promotion incident. The detectives noted his body language and tone, looking for any signs of deception. Kevin's frustration was evident, but there was no solid evidence to connect him to the crime. The detectives continued to monitor Kevin's activities and interviewed his coworkers. They found mixed opinions about him. Some described him as hardworking but temperamental, while others saw him as a potential threat due to his frequent outbursts. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, Kevin remained a person of interest in the case. The detectives knew they had to keep exploring all angles. They needed more than just suspicions to prove his involvement. As the investigation progressed, Kevin's role in JC's life and death continued to be a focal point. On October 18, 2014, 4 days after JC Harris' murder, the Albany Police Department received a crucial piece of new evidence. It was a chilly, overcast morning when a maintenance worker named Peter Willis found a blood-stained glove in a trash can behind the New York State office building where JC worked. Peter immediately reported his discovery to the police. Detectives Neville Lawson and Paul Johnson quickly arrived at the scene. They carefully collected the glove and sent it to the forensic lab for analysis. The detectives hoped this new evidence would provide the breakthrough they needed. Later that afternoon, the forensic team, led by Dr. Amelia Cheonyang, began examining the glove. She and her team found traces of JC's blood on the glove. Along with DNA that did not belong to JC, this new DNA sample was crucial as it could potentially identify the murderer. Meanwhile, the detectives revisited the crime scene to search for any other overlooked evidence. They examined the office and surrounding areas with a fresh perspective. Using advanced forensic tools like luminol, they discovered faint blood traces leading from JC's office to the back exit of the building. This suggested that the murderer had left through that door, possibly discarding the glove along the way. The police then reviewed security footage from nearby cameras. They focused on the back exit, hoping to identify anyone who might have used it around the time of the murder. After hours of watching the footage, they spotted a shadowy figure leaving the building late at night, wearing a hoodie and gloves. Although the footage was grainy, it provided a possible lead. Back at the lab, Dr. Chiong Yang compared the DNA from the glove to the samples they had from the suspects. The results came back quickly, matching Megan Turner's DNA. This was a significant breakthrough. Megan had already been a key suspect due to her close relationship with JC and her emotional instability. Detectives Lawson and Johnson decided to bring Megan in for further questioning. They confronted her with the new evidence. Megan initially denied any involvement, but as the detectives presented the DNA match, her composure began to crack. She admitted to being at the office that night but claimed she had no memory of committing the murder. Her erratic behavior and conflicting statements made the detectives even more suspicious. The new evidence shifted the focus of the investigation sharply toward Megan. The glove, the DNA match, and her proximity to JC on the night of the murder all pointed to her involvement. The detectives knew they were getting closer to solving the case, but they needed more information to secure a conviction. With the new evidence in hand, the police intensified their investigation. Determined to uncover the full truth behind J.C. Harris's tragic death, the community awaited answers as the detectives worked tirelessly to piece together the final parts of the puzzle. On October 22, 2014, Albany police made a significant breakthrough in the murder case of J.C. Harris. Megan Turner, 28, was officially identified as the murderer. The arrest followed crucial evidence linking Megan to the crime, including a DNA match from a blood-stained glove found near the scene. Megan was a freelance graphic designer and also worked as an exotic dancer under the name Dulcimer Geisha. The twist in the case came when police discovered that Jessica Turner Harris, JC's wife, had actually known about the affair between Megan and JC for months. Jessica, who always had an intense sibling rivalry with her sister, had been secretly blackmailing Megan to keep the relationship going. Jessica's aim was to gather enough evidence to ruin Megan's reputation and career. This manipulation added a shocking layer to the crime. Detectives Natalie Lawson and Paul Johnson, who had been leading the investigation, received the tip from Jessica and Megan's widowed father about Jessica's involvement. They learned that Jessica, who had always been jealous of Megan's good looks, had been using her knowledge of the affair to coerce Megan into keeping the relationship alive. This revelation was confirmed by Jessica's text messages and emails, which showed she was actively blackmailing Megan with sexually explicit pictures of her and JC. On the day of Megan's arrest, the weather in Albany was cool and overcast. Detectives Lawson and Johnson arrived at Megan's apartment, which was located in a modest area near Washington Park. Megan was at home, preparing for her evening shift at the club where she performed as Dulcimer Geisha. When the police approached, Megan seemed shocked but cooperative. She was taken into custody without resistance. The arrest was widely covered by local media, including the Albany Times-Union and WNYT News Channel 13. The media reported the new twist in the case, including Jessica's role in manipulating Megan. During the interrogation, Megan admitted to killing JC in a fit of rage after he tried to end their affair. She revealed how Jessica's blackmail and manipulation had driven her to a breaking point. Megan described the murder in detail, including how she used a letter opener to stab JC multiple times and left his body in a grotesque display. Megan's confession and the new evidence provided a clear motive and detailed the tragic culmination of manipulation, obsession, and betrayal. The police were able to piece together the full story, showing how Jessica's indirect influence had pushed Megan to commit the crime. Megan Turner was charged with first-degree murder. The arrest and the unraveling of the twisted motivations behind the crime brought a new level of understanding to the case. The investigation revealed a complex web of deceit that had led to J.C. Harris's tragic death. The community and media followed the case closely as the search for justice continued. Megan Turner's trial began on December 1, 2014, at the Albany County Courthouse. The courtroom was packed with reporters and spectators eager to follow the high-profile case. Megan, 28, faced charges of first-degree murder for the killing of J.C. Harris, a case that had captured local attention. The prosecution was led by District Attorney Becca Cole, known for her clear and compelling arguments. Cole presented a strong case against Megan, using evidence like Megan's confession, the DNA from the blood-stained glove, and Jessica Turner Harris's blackmail. Cole argued that Megan's actions were driven by obsession and manipulation. She detailed how Jessica had used her knowledge of the affair to coerce Megan, adding a layer of manipulation to the crime. During the trial, Cole highlighted the severity of the crime. She described how Megan had brutally attacked JC with a letter opener, leaving his body in a grotesque display. The prosecution emphasized that Megan's violent reaction was a direct result of the emotional manipulation and stress caused by Jessica. Megan's defense attorney, Juan Carter, 50, was known for his calm and methodical approach. Carter argued that Megan had acted out of intense emotional distress rather than premeditation. He suggested that Megan's mental state, combined with the pressure from Jessica's blackmail, had led her to commit the murder in a moment of rage. Carter claimed that Megan did not intend to kill JC, but her actions were the result of extreme emotional turmoil. Throughout the trial, Megan's family remained in the courtroom, visibly distressed. They hoped for a fair outcome, but were deeply troubled by the evidence and the serious nature of the charges. JC's family, including his wife Jessica, attended the trial to seek justice and to understand the full extent of the tragedy. The jury deliberated for several hours and returned a verdict on December 9, 2014. Megan Turner was found guilty of first-degree murder. The jury's decision was based on the evidence presented, including the confession, DNA match, and the emotional impact of the blackmail on Megan. On December 15, 2014, Megan was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge's decision was met with mixed reactions. Some felt the sentence was justified given the brutality of the crime, while others believed it was a harsh punishment. JC's family and friends felt a sense of closure with the verdict. They could begin to heal from the loss of JC, knowing that justice had been served. The trial had shed light on a tragic story of obsession and manipulation, emphasizing the far-reaching effects of deceit and betrayal. The case was a reminder of the importance of justice and the impact of emotional and psychological manipulation. After Megan Turner's sentencing on December 15, 2014, the lives of everyone involved in the case changed dramatically. Megan, 28, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder of JC Harris. Her trial had been widely covered by local media such as the Albany Times-Union and WNYC News Channel 13. In prison, Megan faced a difficult adjustment. Known for her secretive and troubled past, she struggled with the reality of her life sentence. Her family, who had been supportive throughout the trial, found it hard to cope with the outcome. They visited her occasionally but were deeply affected by the nature of her crime. Jessica Turner Harris, JC's wife, continued to deal with the fallout from the case. The revelation of her blackmailing Megan had caused a scandal. Jessica faced public scrutiny and criticism for her role in manipulating Megan. Despite her actions being a significant factor in the case, Jessica remained focused on her family and her work as a wedding planner. She tried to rebuild her life and restore some sense of normalcy for her son, Pikachu. Overall, the murder of JC Harris and Megan Turner's subsequent arrest and trial had far-reaching effects on everyone involved. The case highlighted the tragic consequences of betrayal and manipulation, underscoring the importance of addressing mental health and emotional issues. The community, while moving forward, would always remember the case that shocked Albany and the profound impact it had on their lives. Gina Aurelio Ander was a 32-year-old pediatric nurse who lived in Richmond, Virginia. She worked at St. Mary's Hospital, where she was known for her kindness and dedication to her young patients. Gina was loved by everyone who knew her. She had a warm smile and a gentle touch that made children feel better, even when they were very sick. Gina lived in a cozy suburban neighborhood with her husband, David, and their 2 children, Delta, aged 7, and Spirit, aged 5. The family was often seen at local events, like the annual Greek festival or enjoying weekends at Belle Isle. Gina was also a member of the Richmond Runners Club and participated in community events like the Ucrops Monument Avenue 10K. She had a deep passion for health and fitness. Gina enjoyed morning runs and yoga. Every day, she would start with a smoothie from Jamba Juice before heading out for her jog. Her friends and colleagues often saw her as a role model for living a balanced and healthy life. Gina's favorite smoothie was the Green Goodness, packed with kale, spinach, and a hint of apple juice. Gina grew up in Richmond and went to John Marshall High School. She later attended Virginia Commonwealth University, where she studied nursing. She was known for being an excellent student, always eager to learn. After graduating, Gina immediately started working at St. Mary's Hospital and quickly became a valued member of the team. Gina's widowed mother, Karen Ander, was a retired school teacher who lived nearby and often helped with the kids. The family had a close-knit relationship, spending holidays and weekends together. Gina's friends described her as someone who always put others first. She was the kind of person who would drop everything to help a friend in need. In the days before her death, Gina was planning a big family vacation to Hawaii. She had just finished a tough certification course in pediatric care, and she was excited to take a break and spend quality time with her family. Gina was also looking forward to Halloween, helping her kids pick out costumes and planning a neighborhood party. Gina's dreams included opening her own pediatric clinic one day. She wanted to create a place where children could receive not only medical care but also emotional support. She often talked about her ideas with her colleagues and was actively working on a business plan. Her sudden death was a shock to everyone who knew her, leaving a huge void in the community and her family. Gina Aurelio Ander was a bright light whose life was tragically cut short. On the morning of September 12, 2014, the weather in Richmond, Virginia was mild and sunny. Around 8 o'clock a.m., Gina Aurelio Ander's neighbor, Kelly Ray Clarkson, set out for her own morning walk in Bird Park. Kelly was an acquaintance of Gina's and knew that Gina often jogged there. As she walked along the familiar path, she saw a figure lying on the ground near a bench. As Kelly got closer, she recognized Gina's running shoes and felt a sudden chill. Gina was motionless. Kelly rushed to her side, calling out her name, but there was no response. Panic set in as Kelly realized something was terribly wrong. She quickly pulled out her phone and dialed 911. Her voice was trembling as she spoke to the operator.
911, what's your emergency?
Please, you have to send help. My friend, she's not moving. I think she's dead. We're in Bird Park, near the big fountain.
Kelly's distress was palpable, and the dispatcher tried to calm her down, assuring her that help was on the way. Kelly waited, feeling helpless and scared, staying by Gina's side until the paramedics arrived. When the paramedics reached the scene, they confirmed what Kelly had feared. Gina was dead. The news quickly spread through the park, and onlookers gathered, whispering in shock. The area was soon cordoned off with yellow police tape as detectives arrived to investigate. Kelly was in a state of shock, sitting on the grass with a blanket around her shoulders, provided by one of the paramedics. She couldn't stop shaking, her mind racing with questions about what had happened. She had seen Gina just the day before, and everything seemed normal. Now, nothing made sense. Local news stations, like WRIC and NBC 12, began reporting the story, and soon it was all over social media. People in the community were stunned. Gina was well known and loved, and the idea that she could be gone so suddenly was hard to accept. The park, usually a place of joy and relaxation, had become the scene of a tragedy. As the sun continued to rise, casting long shadows over the quiet park, the police began their meticulous work. Kelly was taken to the police station to give a statement, still trying to process the morning's horrific events. By evening, the story had made headlines in local newspapers, including the Richmond Times-Dispatch. Everyone wanted to know how such a terrible thing could happen to someone like Gina. When the police arrived at Bird Park on the morning of September 12, 2014, they acted quickly. Detective Marcus Merritt, a seasoned officer known for his careful approach, led the team. Alongside him was Detective Sarah Rannon, who had joined the force 2 years earlier and was gaining a reputation for her sharp instincts. They approached the scene where Gina Aurelio Ander's body lay near a park bench. The area was quiet, with only the sound of leaves rustling in the breeze. The park, usually filled with joggers and families, felt eerie that morning. The detectives took in the scene. Gina's body was positioned as if she had simply lain down and never gotten up. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood, and nothing appeared out of place at first glance. It was puzzling. Detective Merritt and Rannon examined Gina's belongings. Her phone was in her pocket, her headphones were still in her gears, and a partially consumed smoothie cup was nearby. The detectives knew they needed to find out if this was a tragic accident or something more sinister. The smoothie cup caught Detective Rannon's attention. It was from Jamba Juice, a place Gina frequented. She carefully collected it as evidence, suspecting it might hold clues. Meanwhile, forensic experts arrived and began their detailed work, using tools like UV lights and special chemicals to search for any hidden evidence. As the investigation progressed, the detectives learned that Gina had been poisoned. The autopsy revealed she had ingested a lethal dose of digitalis, a toxin from the foxglove plant, which had been mixed into her smoothie. This revelation shifted the case from a mysterious death to a clear case of murder. The police worked methodically, interviewing park visitors and checking security cameras in the area. They hoped to find someone who had seen Gina that morning or noticed anything unusual. Detective Merritt and Rainin kept a close eye on the investigation, ensuring no detail was overlooked. They visited the Jamba Juice where Gina had bought her smoothie, talking to employees and reviewing surveillance footage from the store. The crime scene investigation was thorough. The detectives pieced together Gina's final hours, from purchasing her smoothie to her last moments in the park. The careful collection of evidence and witness testimonies would become crucial in solving the case and bringing Gina's killer to justice. By the end of the day, the park had returned to its usual calm, but the echoes of the morning's tragedy lingered. The community was left in shock, grappling with the loss of a beloved nurse and mother. The police, now armed with vital clues, were determined to find the person responsible for Gina's death. David Aurelio, aged 41, was Gina's husband and a state senator from Harrisonburg, Virginia. Known for his charm and polished public image, David had a darker side that few people saw. Financial troubles and the stress of his demanding job had put a significant strain on his marriage to Gina. The police brought David in for questioning on September 13, 2014. The interrogation room was stark, with a simple table and chairs, a far cry from the luxurious settings David was used to. Detective Marcus Merritt and Detective Sarah Rainin conducted the interview. David sat across from them, appearing calm and collected, but there was a tension in the air.
Mr. Aurelio, can you tell us where you were on the morning of September 12th?
I was at my office, preparing for a meeting. I got there early, around 7:30 a.m.
The detectives knew that his office was in downtown Richmond, a considerable distance from Bird Park. They needed to verify his alibi.
Did anyone see you there? Can anyone confirm your whereabouts?
Yes, my assistant, Ruby. She can confirm I was there.
As the interrogation continued, the detectives noticed that David maintained a controlled demeanor. But there were moments when his frustration peeked through. When asked about his relationship with Gina, David's facade briefly cracked.
Our marriage was challenging lately, but I love Gina. I would never hurt her.
However, the detectives had discovered that David was under immense financial pressure. He had made bad investments and was heavily in debt. These financial troubles had driven a wedge between him and Gina. The detectives also found out about a large life insurance policy David had taken out on Gina, raising further suspicions.
Mr. Aurelio, did you know about the life insurance policy on your wife?
Yes, but that's not uncommon. It's for our children's future, in case anything happened to her.
The detectives weren't convinced. They pressed on, asking about his recent financial activities and any conflicts with Gina. David's answers were increasingly terse, and his calm demeanor began to crack under the pressure. David's controlled responses and the significant life insurance policy made him a prime suspect. The detectives left the interrogation room with more questions than answers, but were determined to uncover the truth. David's financial desperation and strained marriage painted a grim picture. As the investigation continued, the police searched David's financial records and phone logs, looking for any clues that could connect him to Gina's murder. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, but the detectives knew they needed more evidence to make a solid case. The spotlight was firmly on David Aurelio, and the community watched closely as the investigation into Gina's tragic death unfolded. Karen Ander, age 58, was Gina's mother and a retired school teacher. She had a very close relationship with her daughter and often helped care for Gina's children, Delta and Spirit. Despite her nurturing personality, Karen had a complicated and strained relationship with Gina's husband, David. She often criticized him for how he treated Gina. On September 14, 2014, the police brought Karen in for questioning. Detective Marcus Merritt and Detective Sarah Rainin conducted the interview in a quiet room at the police station. Karen appeared anxious and tired, her eyes red from crying.
Mrs. Andor, can you tell us about your relationship with David?
David and I have never gotten along. He's always been so controlling and demanding. Gina deserved better.
The detectives knew they needed to dig deeper. They had discovered a secret that Karen had kept hidden for years.
Mrs. Andor, we have reason to believe that you and David were involved in an affair.
Yes, it's true. It started 5 years ago. It was a terrible mistake. I knew it was wrong, but he threatened to ruin my relationship with Gina if I didn't comply.
The detectives exchanged glances. This revelation added a new layer of complexity to the case. Karen's involvement with David could be seen as a motive, but her admission also pointed towards David's manipulative behavior.
Why didn't you come forward earlier?
I was ashamed. I didn't want to lose my daughter. I didn't know what to do.
Karen's emotional state was clear. She was torn between her guilt and her love for Gina. The detectives pressed on, asking about the morning of Gina's death. "Where were you on September 12th?" Detective Merritt asked.
I was at home. I didn't see Gina that morning. I heard about her death from the news. It was like my worst nightmare came true.
The detectives noted her responses and the genuine anguish in her voice. Karen's confession about the affair with David complicated the investigation, but they still needed more evidence to determine her exact role. After the interrogation, the police continued to gather information. They looked into Karen's background, her phone records, and any possible connections to the poison used to kill Gina. The community was shocked by the revelation of the affair, adding to the already tense atmosphere surrounding the case. As the investigation moved forward, Karen's involvement remained a key piece of the puzzle. The detectives knew they had to untangle the web of relationships and secrets to find out who was truly responsible for Gina's death. On September 15, 2014, the weather in Richmond, Virginia, was cloudy with a chance of rain. Around 3:00 p.m., while searching Gina's home for more clues, the police found something crucial. Detective Sarah Rainin was going through Gina's desk when she discovered a hidden compartment. Inside, there was a small digital recorder. The recorder contains several conversations between Gina and David. These recordings revealed Gina confronting David about his secret gambling addiction and the financial troubles he had been hiding. One recording was particularly alarming. Gina mentioned wanting to leave David and take their children with her, while David responded with cold, threatening remarks. This evidence was a significant breakthrough, providing a clear motive for David and showing how desperate and dangerous he had become. Gina had been planning to leave him, and David's fear of losing his family and his reputation might have driven him to murder. With this new evidence, the detectives returned to questioning David. They confronted him with the recordings, hoping to crack his calm facade. Faced with the recordings, David became visibly distressed, his usual composure breaking down. He admitted to the gambling addiction and the threat, but he said that he had not intended for Gina to die. He had only wanted to scare her into staying with him. David's confession confirmed the police's suspicions and provided them another piece of the puzzle. The detectives documented David's confession and the new evidence carefully, knowing it would be crucial for the trial. The community, still reeling from the shock, hoped for justice for Gina. As the investigation continued, the focus shifted to preparing for the upcoming trial, where David would face the consequences of his actions. The police's diligent search for evidence and the discovery of the recorder played a critical role in solving Gina's murder. David's fear of losing everything had pushed him to a desperate and ultimately fatal act. The meticulous work of the detectives ensured that justice would be served, bringing some closure to Gina's grieving family and community. Lisa Breton, aged 29, was a nurse who worked with Gina at the hospital. Known for her ambition and drive, Lisa often competed with Gina for promotions and recognition. Despite their professional rivalry, they maintained a facade of friendship. Lisa was considered a possible suspect because of her competitive nature and proximity to Gina. On September 16, 2014, the police brought Lisa in for questioning. The interrogation room was plain and serious. Detective Marcus Merritt and Detective Sarah Rainin conducted the interview. Lisa appeared composed, but there was a tension in her eyes. The detectives began by asking Lisa about her relationship with Gina. Lisa described their relationship as friendly, but acknowledged the professional rivalry. She admitted that they both aimed for the same promotions and recognition at the hospital. However, she insisted that their competition was friendly and not personal. The detectives then shifted their focus to Lisa's whereabouts on the morning of Gina's death. Lisa explained that she was at the hospital, starting her shift at 7:00 a.m. The detectives checked this alibi with the hospital records and confirmed that Lisa had indeed clocked in at that time. Colleagues also confirmed seeing her at work. Despite her alibi, the detectives delved deeper into Lisa's background. They found that Lisa had no criminal record and was known for her dedication to her job. However, they also discovered that Lisa had recently faced disappointment. She had been passed over for a promotion that Gina had received. This raised questions about her possible motives. While Lisa's rivalry with Gina was evident, the detectives found no concrete evidence tying her to the murder. The investigation continued, but Lisa remained cooperative and calm throughout the process. Her alibi and lack of motive made it difficult for the police to consider her a primary suspect. As the investigation progressed, the focus shifted back to the more likely suspects. Lisa's involvement seemed less probable given her strong alibi and lack of motive. The detectives continued to piece together the evidence, determined to find justice for Gina. On September 20, 2014, Detective Marcus Merritt and Detective Sarah Rainin finally got the break they needed. They had discovered the real reason why David Aurelio had been blackmailing Gina's mother, Karen Ander. This shocking twist came to light after a careful review of the hidden camera footage and phone records. David had discovered that he was Karen's son from a secret teenage pregnancy, given up for adoption years ago. He used this information to force Karen into an affair and to keep her silent about his abusive behavior towards Gina. David was under immense financial pressure due to bad investments, failing business ventures, and a severe gambling addiction. His mounting debts had led him to take out a large life insurance policy on Gina. When Gina found out about his gambling and was planning to leave him with the kids, David saw no way out other than to get rid of her. On the morning of Gina's death, David got her usual morning smoothie from Jamba Juice, but this time he added a lethal dose of digitalis. This poison derived from the foxglove plant is not commonly used, making it hard to detect. Gina drank the smoothie before her routine jog, completely unaware of what her husband had done. Within minutes, she collapsed and died on the sidewalk, where her neighbor later found her. The weather on September 21, 2014 was stormy, with heavy rain and thunder. That evening, the police decided to arrest David. They arrived at his office at the state capitol, where he was finishing up a late meeting. The arrest was swift and professional. David, dressed in his usual sharp suit, was caught off guard but tried to maintain his composure. As the officers read him his rights, his face remained stony, but his hands shook slightly. News of David's arrest quickly spread through the media. The Richmond Times-Dispatch reported on the shocking arrest of the state senator, and TV stations like WTVR and WRIC aired footage of David being led away in handcuffs. The community was stunned. Many had admired David for his public service, unaware of the dark secrets he kept. Gina's family, especially her mother Karen, were devastated but relieved. Friends and neighbors gathered to support Gina's children, Delta and Spirit, offering help and comfort during this difficult time. David's arrest marked the beginning of the end of a tragic story filled with deceit, betrayal, and loss. The community of Richmond was left to pick up the pieces and support Gina's family as they faced the long road ahead. The trial of David Aurelio started in January 2015 at the Richmond Circuit Court. The courtroom was filled with reporters, friends, and family members of both David and Gina. The Richmond Times-Dispatch and local TV stations covered the trial closely, keeping the community updated on every detail. The prosecution was led by Richard Huckley, a 50-year-old attorney known for his dedication to justice. Huckley was determined to prove that David had planned and executed the murder of his wife, Gina. He presented the recordings found on the hidden camera, which showed David's violent temper and threats towards Gina. Huckley also highlighted the life insurance policy and David's gambling debts as motives. On the other side, the defense attorney, Julia Indio, was 45 years old and known for her calm and sharp legal skills. She argued that the evidence was circumstantial and that David was being framed. Indio pointed out that there were no witnesses to David actually poisoning Gina and tried to cast doubt on the reliability of the evidence. Gina's family sat through the trial with heavy hearts. Her mother, Karen Ander, was often seen wiping away tears, while Gina's children, Delta and Spirit, were too young to understand the full extent of what was happening, but were deeply affected by the loss of their mother. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury found David Aurelio guilty of first-degree murder. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read. David showed no emotion, but his hands trembled slightly. The judge sentenced him to 20 years in prison with the possibility of parole in 5 years. The community of Richmond had mixed reactions. Some felt the sentence was just beyond the cruelty of the crime, while others were shocked that a state senator could commit such an act. Gina's friends and family felt a sense of justice, but also a deep sadness that nothing could bring Gina back. Reporters from the Richmond Times-Dispatch and local news stations interviewed people outside the courthouse. Many expressed relief that justice was served, but also concern for Gina's children, who would grow up without their parents. The trial's outcome affected everyone involved. Karen Anders struggled with the dual betrayal of losing her daughter and discovering her son's true nature. Gina's colleagues at the hospital remembered her dedication and kindness, setting up a scholarship in her name to help future nurses. David's trial and conviction brought some closure to the community, but the impact of his actions would be felt for years to come. After the trial, life in Richmond, Virginia slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy. For Gina Aurelio Anders' family and friends, however, the scars left by her tragic death would take much longer to heal. David Aurelio's conviction brought a sense of closure to Gina's loved ones. They found solace in knowing that justice had been served for Gina, even as they grappled with the pain of her absence. The community rallied around them, offering support and condolences during their time of grief. For Delta and Spirit, Gina's children, life would never be the same. They were left without a mother, their innocence shattered by the cruel actions of their father. But with the love and support of their extended family and community, they began the long journey of healing and rebuilding their lives. As for Karen Anders, Gina's mother, the trial marked the end of a nightmare. David's blackmail had been a heavy burden to bear, but with David behind bars, she could finally breathe a sigh of relief. She found solace in knowing that she had helped bring her daughter's killer to justice. For Detective Marcus Merritt and Detective Sarah Rannon, the trial was a bittersweet victory. They had worked tirelessly to unravel the truth behind Gina's murder, and seeing David Aurelio behind bars was a testament to their dedication and perseverance. But they knew that their work was far from over. There were other cases to solve, other families seeking closure, and they were determined to continue fighting for justice. Though Gina Aurelio Anders was gone, her spirit lived on in the hearts of those who loved her. And as the community stood together, united in grief and remembrance, they vowed never to forget the woman who had touched so many lives. In the wealthy town of Norwalk, Connecticut, Barbara Broslow, a devoted stay-at-home mom and wife, aged 36, dedicated her time to caring for her two children, Mikey and Bubbles, and supporting her husband, David Broslow. She took pride in her role as a homemaker, finding joy in her family. Barbara's dreams revolved around creating a loving and harmonious environment for her loved ones. Despite the challenges she faced in her personal life, Barbara maintained a positive outlook, trying to keep the peace in her family. Barbara was a woman of routine. Her days were filled with household chores, cooking delicious meals for her family, and tending to the needs of her children. She had a particular fondness for baking, spending hours in the kitchen perfecting her famous chocolate chip cookies. In March of 1988, Barbara's life took an unexpected turn. Rumors began to circulate in their small suburban neighborhood about a mysterious man who had recently moved to town. His name was Mark Cassavetes, a charismatic and enigmatic figure. Mark was known for his charm and good looks, which made him the center of attention wherever he went. Barbara's path crossed with Mark's when they both attended a local charity event. The chemistry between them was undeniable, and they soon found themselves entangled rumors in a passionate affair. Gossip of affair became the talk of the town, with whispers and obscene stories spreading like wildfire. Little did Barbara know that rumors of her possible affair would have dire consequences. The events that unfolded in the following months would shatter the tranquility of her suburban life and leave a lasting impact on the community. On the fateful morning of March 12, 1988, the quiet suburban neighborhood of Pinecrest Hills in Norwalk, Connecticut was about to be shaken to its core. As the sun timidly peeked over the horizon, casting an eerie glow on the dew-covered lawns, a neighbor stumbled upon a scene straight out of a nightmare. Patty Myers, a middle-aged woman known for her friendly demeanor and love for gardening, had ventured out for her daily morning walk. As she strolled past the Broslow household, a sense of unease settled upon her. The usually bustling home, filled with the sounds of children's laughter and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee, was eerily silent. Curiosity got the better of Patty, and she decided to investigate further. Approaching the front porch, she noticed the morning newspaper, untouched and abandoned. It struck her as odd, as Barbara Broslow was known for her punctuality and love for staying informed. An unsettling feeling crept up Patty's spine, and she hesitantly pushed open the front door. The air inside the house felt heavy, as if a storm was brewing. Patty cautiously made her way through the familiar rooms, her heart pounding in her chest. And then, she stumbled upon a sight that would haunt her for the rest of her days. In the pristine kitchen, where delicious meals were prepared with love, lay the lifeless body of Barbara Broslow. Her once vibrant eyes stared vacantly into the distance, forever frozen in a state of terror. Blood adorned the pristine white tiles, a stark contrast to the innocence that once permeated the room. Patty's hands trembled as she reached for the kitchen phone, hastily dialing emergency services. The voice on the other end of the line struggled to comprehend the gravity of the situation. Barbara Broslow, a pillar of the community known for her warm and nurturing nature, had met a gruesome and untimely demise within the confines of her own home. News of the shocking discovery spread like wildfire through Pinecrest Hills. The tight-knit community, usually abuzz with gossip about the latest fashion trends or local bake sales, was now consumed by fear and uncertainty. The murder of Barbara Broslow had shattered their illusion of safety, leaving them vulnerable and searching for answers. As investigators descended upon the Broslow household, meticulously combing through every inch for clues, the residents of Pinecrest Hills held their breath. Who could have committed such a heinous act? Was it a random act of violence, or was there something more sinister at play? The Norwalk Police Department wasted no time in launching a thorough investigation into the heinous murder of Barbara Broslow. Detective Indra Romert and Detective Stuart Teamkill, seasoned investigators with a reputation for cracking even the toughest cases, were assigned to lead the inquiry. Arriving at the crime scene, the detectives were met with a chilling sight. The Broslow household, usually a place of warmth and love, had been transformed into a macabre tableau. The kitchen, where Barbara should have been preparing meals for her family, now bore the scars of a violent crime. Bloodstains, like dark omens, marred the pristine surfaces. The air was thick with an eerie silence, broken only by the occasional creak of floorboards under the detectives' cautious steps. The investigators meticulously combed through the house, leaving no stone unturned. They carefully examined every inch of the crime scene, collecting evidence and piecing together the puzzle of Barbara's untimely demise. The walls echoed with the soft hum of their conversations as they discussed theories and brainstormed possible leads. As they sifted through the evidence, the detectives discovered a number of intriguing clues. A single bullet casing, gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights, hinted at the weapon used to snuff out Barbara's life. They also found a shattered vase, its shards scattered across the floor, suggesting a struggle had taken place. The detectives meticulously bagged and tagged each item, knowing that even the smallest detail could hold the key to unlocking the truth. Outside the Broslow household, the investigation expanded. Detective Romert and Detective Teamkill interviewed neighbors, hoping to gather any information that could shed light on the events leading up to the murder. They spoke to Patty Myers, the neighbor who had made the gruesome discovery, and noted down her harrowing account. They also reached out to Mark Cassavetes, discovering that rumors of an affair were just that. As the detectives meticulously pieced together the evidence, the weight of the case hung heavy on their shoulders. The clock was ticking, and they knew that time was of the essence. As the chilling case of Barbara Broslow's murder unfolded, the spotlight turned towards her husband, David Broslow. At 40 years old, David was an accountant by profession, known for his charming demeanor and ambitious drive. On the surface, he appeared to be a loving and devoted spouse, but as the investigation deepened, a dark and sinister secret began to emerge. The police wasted no time in interrogating David, determined to uncover any possible motives for such a heinous act. They meticulously combed through his personal and professional life, seeking answers that would shed light on the tragedy that had befallen the Broslow family. During the interrogation, the detectives confronted David with evidence that contradicted his claims of innocence. They presented him with phone records that showed numerous late-night calls to a mysterious number traced back to a payphone outside a local diner. The detectives also discovered a hidden compartment in David's car, containing a stack of love letters addressed to a woman named Karen, a colleague at his workplace. As the pressure mounted, David's calm facade began to crumble. The once charming man grew visibly agitated, his voice trembling as he vehemently denied any involvement in his wife's murder. However, his attempts to protect his own interest became increasingly transparent to the seasoned detectives. The investigation took an unexpected turn when a witness came forward. claiming to have seen David arguing with Barbara at a local bar just days before her death. The witness, also named Karen, recalled hearing heated exchanges between the couple, with David's voice filled with anger and frustration. This revelation added another layer of suspicion to David's already shaky alibi. As the investigation into David Broslow continued, the detectives dug deeper into his financial records, uncovering a series of questionable transactions. They discovered that David had been embezzling funds from his workplace, a prestigious accounting firm in downtown Norwalk. This revelation painted a picture of a man desperate to cover his tracks, willing to go to extreme lengths to maintain his facade of success. The investigation into the murder of Barbara Broslow took a startling turn when another person of interest emerged, Leanne Portmanteau, the Broslow family's babysitter and a senior at the local high school. At just 18 years old, Leanne was known for her youthful innocence and naive charm. However, beneath her seemingly innocent facade lurked a not-so-secret romantic obsession for David Broslow, Barbara's husband. Leanne had been babysitting for the Broslow family for over a year, developing a close bond with Barbara and the children, Mikey and Bubbles. She idolized Barbara, admiring her nurturing nature and the loving environment she had created for her family. But it was David who captured Leanne's attention, fueling her dreams of one day becoming his bride. As the investigation unfolded, detectives discovered a series of secret love letters written by Leanne to David, expressing her deep affection and desire for him. These letters painted a vivid picture of a young girl infatuated with an older man, yearning for a love that seemed unattainable. The detectives carefully analyzed the letters, searching for clues that could link Leanne to the murder of Barbara. Detective Indra Romert and Detective Stuart Teamkill delved deeper into Leanne's background, interviewing her friends, teachers, and acquaintances. They discovered that Leanne had become increasingly jealous of Barbara, viewing her as an obstacle standing in the way of her romantic fantasies. Friends recalled Leanne's obsession with true crime stories and her fascination with cases involving love triangles, often discussing them with a morbid curiosity. The detectives also uncovered evidence that Leanne had been researching firearms and their potential effects on the human body. They found a stack of magazines, including a March 1988 issue of True Crime Monthly, which featured an article on infamous murder cases. This discovery raised suspicions about Leanne's intentions and her possible involvement in Barbara's murder. Furthermore, witnesses reported seeing Leanne near the Broslow household on the day of the crime. One neighbor, Mrs. Karen Johnson, stated that she saw Leanne lurking around the property, peering through the windows with an intense gaze. Another witness claimed to have seen Leanne leaving the area in a hurry, her face flushed and her hands trembling. The police, now armed with substantial evidence and witness testimonies, brought Leanne in for questioning. The detectives confronted her with the love letters, the magazines, and the witness accounts. Initially, Leanne denied any involvement in Barbara's murder, insisting that her feelings for David were harmless and that she would never harm Barbara. However, as the detectives pressed her further, Leanne's composure began to crumble, revealing a young girl trapped in a web of obsession and desperation. The investigation into the murder of Barbara Broslow took a surprising twist with the emergence of a new suspect. Alex Bruce Coachman, a 17-year-old boy and the son of the Broslow family's neighbor, became a person of interest in this chilling case. Known for his nosy and intrusive behavior, Alex had a troubled history with the Broslow family. Alex's obsession with Leanne Portmanteau, the Broslow family's babysitter and his classmate at the local high school, was no secret. He had broken into the Broslow family home on multiple occasions, driven by an intense infatuation with Leanne. But it was his deep-seated resentment towards Barbara that made him a potential suspect in her murder. The police interrogated Alex, hoping to uncover his motive for such a heinous act. As the questions intensified, Alex's anger and frustration became evident. He struggled to maintain his calm facade, revealing a young man consumed by jealousy and desperation. It was discovered that Alex had been keeping a disturbing collection of newspaper clippings and photographs of Barbara. These items were found hidden in a secret compartment in his bedroom, providing a glimpse into the depths of his obsession. The clippings included articles about Barbara's involvement in the local community, her role as a dedicated mother, and her close relationship with her husband, David. Further investigation revealed that Alex had been following Barbara's every move, documenting her daily routines and interactions. He had even gone as far as to purchase a camera with a telephoto lens, allowing him to capture intimate moments from a distance. This unsettling behavior painted a disturbing picture of a young man fixated on Barbara, viewing her as a threat to his own fated lover, Leanne. As the investigation continued, the police uncovered evidence linking Alex to the crime scene. Fingerprints found on a kitchen knife matched Alex's, raising suspicions of his involvement in the murder. Additionally, witnesses reported seeing Alex in the vicinity of the Broslow household on the day of the crime. The police diligently pursued every lead, leaving no stone unturned in their quest for justice. As the case gained media attention, the community was gripped by fear and disbelief. The quiet suburb of Norwalk, Connecticut, was now at the center of a shocking crime that had shattered the illusion of safety. In a shocking twist of events, the true culprit behind the heinous murder of Barbara Broslow was finally revealed to be none other than her own husband, David Broslow. The police investigation, led by Norwalk Police Detective Indra Romert and Detective Stuart Teamkill, meticulously unraveled the web of deceit and betrayal that had engulfed the Broslow family. Driven by a toxic combination of jealousy and greed, David had orchestrated a sinister plot to end his wife's life and frame an innocent teenager, Alex Bruce Coachman, for the crime. His motive? To escape the confines of his unhappy marriage and start a new life with the family's babysitter, Leanne Portmanteau, who had become his accomplice in this chilling saga. The evidence against David was overwhelming. Through meticulous forensic analysis, the police were able to connect him to the murder weapon, a .38 caliber revolver found hidden in the attic of their suburban home. The gun, traced back to a local pawn shop, had been purchased by David just weeks before the crime took place. The bullet casings recovered from the crime scene matched those fired from the weapon, leaving no doubt as to David's guilt. But it wasn't just the physical evidence that sealed David's fate. The police also uncovered a plot between him and Leanne, detailing their plans to carry out the murder and deceive the authorities. As news of David's and Leanne's arrest spread throughout the community, shock and disbelief rippled through the quiet streets of Norwalk. The local media, hungry for a sensational story, descended upon the town, their cameras capturing the anguish and bewilderment etched on the faces of neighbors and friends. The aftermath of this tragic event left the Broslow family shattered and scarred. Barbara's children, Mikey and Bubbles, were forced to confront the harsh reality that their father, the man they once idolized, was capable of such evil. The community rallied around them, offering support and solace during this difficult time. The trial of David Broslow, the man responsible for the brutal murder of his wife Barbara, captivated the area as it unfolded in the spring of 1988. The courtroom, located in the heart of Norwalk, Connecticut, buzzed with anticipation as the prosecution and defense presented their cases. District Attorney Tom Valligance, a seasoned prosecutor known for his meticulous attention to detail, painted a vivid picture of David's motives and the calculated nature of the crime. He meticulously laid out the evidence, including the testimonies of neighbors who had heard heated arguments between David and Barbara in the months leading up to her murder. Defense attorney Michael Stevens, a charismatic lawyer with a reputation for his persuasive arguments, fought vigorously to cast doubt on the prosecution's case. He questioned the reliability of witness testimonies, suggesting that they were influenced by media coverage and the desire for justice. Stevens argued that there was no concrete evidence linking David to the crime, and that the investigation had failed to explore other possible suspects. The trial was a roller coaster of emotions for the victim's family. Barbara's parents sat stoically in the courtroom, their eyes filled with tears as they listened to the harrowing details of their daughter's final moments. Mikey and Bubbles, Barbara's children, clung to their grandparents for support, their innocence shattered by the cruel reality of their mother's murder. As the trial reached its climax, the jury retired to deliberate. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as the nation waited with bated breath for the verdict. After several hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a unanimous decision: guilty. David Broslow, the man who had meticulously planned and executed his wife's murder and Leanne Portmanteau, his accomplice and lover, were sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The sentencing brought a mix of relief and grief to the victim's family.
While they found solace in the fact that justice had been served, the pain of losing Barbara would forever linger. The community of Norwalk, still reeling from the shock of the murder, found some closure in the knowledge that the person responsible would be held accountable for his actions. In the aftermath of the trial, the Broslow case became a cautionary tale, reminding us of the dark underbelly that can lurk behind the facade of suburban tranquility. It served as a stark reminder that evil can reside in the most unexpected places, tearing apart families and shattering lives. After the gripping trial that captivated the area, life slowly began to return to a semblance of normalcy for those involved in the tragic murder of Barbara Broslow. Leanne Portmanteau, the teenage babysitter who was caught up in the web of deceit and found herself in prison, found solace in the support of her family and friends. Leanne's dreams of a future with David Broslow were shattered, and she realized the extent of his manipulation and deceit. She distanced herself from the dark memories of the past, immersing herself in her studies and extracurricular activities. With the guidance of her prison counselor, she sought therapy to help process the trauma she had endured. As for Alex Bruce Coachman, the troubled young neighbor who had harbored an unhealthy obsession with Leanne, he faced legal consequences for his intrusive behavior. The court-mandated counseling sessions aimed to address his deeply rooted issues and provide him with the necessary tools to rebuild his life. The community rallied around Alex, offering support and understanding as he worked towards redemption. As the years passed, the wounds slowly healed, but the scars remained. The Broslow family continued to honor Barbara's memory through acts of kindness and charitable donations. They established the Barbara Broslow Memorial Fund, which provided financial assistance to local families facing hardships. The fund became a symbol of hope and resilience in the face of tragedy. And so, we conclude this episode of True Crime Case Files. The story of Barbara Broslow's tragic murder serves as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly idyllic lives. Join us next time as we delve into another captivating tale of mystery and intrigue. Our story begins with Tanya Dubenko, a 27-year-old manager of a chain of local convenience stores, was known for her unpredictable behavior. Despite her occasional burst of tears and psychotically furious outbursts, Tanya possessed a dreamy demeanor that captivated those around her. Her family and friends described her as a woman with grand aspirations, yearning for a life filled with love and success. In the days leading up to her untimely demise, Tanya was filled with excitement and anticipation, eagerly awaiting her honeymoon in the Bahamas. Tanya's wedding day was a picturesque affair, set against the backdrop of the stunning Canadian Rockies. The ceremony took place at the historic Fairmont Palazzo Hotel, a renowned venue known for hosting extravagant events. The grandeur of the occasion was further enhanced by the presence of notable guests, including local celebrities and prominent figures from Calgary's high society. The wedding reception was a lavish affair, with an opulent feast prepared by one of Calgary's most renowned chefs. The tables were adorned with exquisite floral arrangements created by the renowned local florist, Sarah Richardson. The atmosphere was charged with excitement and joy as the guests danced to the tunes of the popular band, Duran Duran, who were at the height of their fame in 1984. However, amidst the celebration, a sense of unease lingered in the air. Tanya's erratic behavior throughout the day had raised eyebrows and whispered concerns among the attendees. Some speculated that the pressure of the wedding had taken its toll on her, while others whispered about a troubled past that haunted her. As the evening progressed, Tanya's mood seemed to darken. She retreated to a secluded corner of the reception hall, tears streaming down her face. Concerned friends and family members attempted to console her, but their efforts were in vain. Tanya's anguish seemed impenetrable, as if she carried a burden that no one could understand. Little did anyone know that this would be the last time they would see Tanya alive. In the early hours of the following morning, tragedy struck. Tanya Dubenko was found lifeless in her hotel room, her dreams of a blissful honeymoon shattered. And so, the investigation begins. What led to Tanya's untimely demise? Was it a case of foul play or a tragic accident? In the heart of Calgary, a city known for its picturesque landscapes and vibrant culture, a shocking crime unfolded on a day that was meant to be filled with joy and celebration. Tanya Dubenko, a 27-year-old manager of a chain of local convenience stores, was about to embark on a new chapter of her life as a married woman. Little did she know that her wedding day would be marred by tragedy, leaving a community in shock and searching for answers. Tanya,
described as a woman with a mix of unpredictable behavior and a dreamy demeanor, had captured the attention of those around her. Her family and friends knew her as someone with grand aspirations, yearning for a life filled with love and success. As the days leading up to her wedding approached, Tanya's excitement and anticipation were palpable. The couple had planned a romantic honeymoon in the Bahamas, a destination that symbolized the beginning of their journey together. But fate had a different plan in store for Tanya and her newlywed husband, Rick Dubinko. Just 2 hours before they were scheduled to depart for their dream honeymoon, tragedy struck. Tanya's lifeless body was discovered in the honeymoon suite, her head brutally smashed against the shower wall, forever shattering the dreams and hopes of a promising future. Rick, who had returned to the suite to retrieve his forgotten wallet, was the one to stumble upon the gruesome scene. The shock and horror of this discovery overwhelmed him, leaving the community divided on his reaction. Some witnesses claimed that Rick appeared strangely calm and collected, while others insisted that he was visibly shaken and distraught, unable to comprehend the magnitude of the tragedy that had befallen his beloved bride. As the investigation into Tanya's untimely demise unfolded, the authorities meticulously combed through every detail, leaving no stone unturned. The search for the truth behind Tanya Dubinko's tragic end continues. As investigators delve into the case, they uncover a web of secrets and hidden motives that could hold the key to unraveling this chilling mystery. The police swiftly responded to the distressing scene at the honeymoon suite, determined to uncover the truth behind the tragic death of Tanya Dubinko. Led by seasoned investigators, detectives Greg Johnson and Pierre Rambo, the team meticulously examined every inch of the crime scene, leaving no stone unturned. The suite, once a place of joy and anticipation, had transformed into a chilling sight, with bloodstains marking the walls like a macabre canvas. The investigators discovered that Tanya had met a violent end, her life cruelly taken by blunt force trauma to her head. The murder weapon, shockingly, was believed to be the shower wall itself. This revelation sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community of Calgary, Alberta, as they grappled with the horrifying reality that such a heinous crime could occur in their midst. As the investigation unfolded, the police meticulously combed through the suite, collecting and cataloging every piece of evidence. They meticulously documented each detail, creating a comprehensive record of the crime scene. The room was meticulously photographed, capturing the bloodstains, the shattered glass, and the haunting stillness that hung in the air. Detectives Johnson and Rambo interviewed witnesses, friends, and family members, piecing together the events leading up to Tanya's untimely demise. They retraced her steps from the moment she woke up on that fateful day to the tragic discovery of her lifeless body. The investigators examined Tanya's personal belongings, searching for any clues that might shed light on the motive behind this senseless act of violence. News of the murder spread through the city, captivating the attention of the public. The local newspapers, such as the Calgary Herald, dedicated coverage to the case, with headlines that screamed of a shocking crime that had shattered the tranquility of the city. Television news programs, like CBC News, dedicated segments to the investigation, urging anyone with information to come forward. The police, driven by a relentless pursuit of justice, worked tirelessly to solve the case. They consulted forensic experts, analyzed fingerprints, and conducted interviews with potential suspects. The investigation took them down a labyrinth of leads and possibilities, each one meticulously examined and evaluated. As the days turned into weeks, the city of Calgary remained on edge, anxiously awaiting answers to the questions that haunted their collective consciousness. Who could have committed such a heinous act? Was it a crime of passion, or was there something more sinister at play? The investigators remained tight-lipped, their determination unwavering, as they continued to piece together the puzzle that was Tanya Dubinko's murder. The primary suspect in the gruesome crime that shocked the city of Calgary in August 1984 was none other than Rick Dubinko, the newlywed husband of the late Tanya Dubinko. As the investigation unfolded, all eyes turned to Rick, a 28-year-old man of reserved demeanor and few words. The police, driven by their determination to uncover the truth, delved into Rick's life, searching for any hidden secrets that might shed light on the tragic events that unfolded on that fateful day. Rick Dubinko, a man with a calm exterior that belied the storm within, found himself under intense scrutiny. The detectives, led by the seasoned investigators Detectives Johnson and Rambo, interrogated Rick extensively in an effort to discern any signs of guilt or involvement. The interrogation room, a sterile and dimly lit space, became the battleground where truth and deception clashed. During the grueling questioning, Rick maintained his innocence, his voice steady and unwavering. The detectives probed into his background, meticulously piecing together the puzzle of his life. They discovered that Rick had grown up in a small town on the outskirts of Calgary, where he had led a relatively unremarkable existence. He had attended the local high school, graduating with average grades and no notable achievements. In the months leading up to the ill-fated wedding, Rick had been working as a junior accountant at a prominent firm in downtown Calgary. His colleagues described him as a diligent worker, always punctual and meticulous in his tasks. However, his reserved nature had made it difficult for them to truly know him on a personal level. As the detectives dug deeper, they uncovered a few peculiar details about Rick's life. They discovered that he had recently purchased a life insurance policy, naming Tanya as the beneficiary. This revelation raised eyebrows and fueled speculation about Rick's motives. Was he driven by a desire for financial gain? Or was there another, more sinister reason behind his actions? As the investigation into the tragic death of Tanya Dubinko unfolded, a new suspect emerged, adding another layer of complexity to the case. This potential suspect was none other than Frank Pelly, Jr., a well-respected hockey coach at the local high school and the father of the deceased bride. Frank's involvement in this chilling crime stemmed from a shocking revelation that took place just moments before the wedding ceremony. It was on that fateful day in February of 1984 when Frank stumbled upon an illicit affair between Rick Dubinko, Tanya's newlywed husband, and Maria Janet Bosco, one of the bridesmaids. The discovery of this affair left Frank seething with anger and a burning desire for revenge. Eyewitnesses recounted the scene with vivid detail, describing Frank's face turning red with fury as he confronted the illicit couple. The tension in the air was palpable as Frank's booming voice echoed through the halls of the wedding venue. The fallout from this explosive confrontation reverberated through Calgary, Alberta. Rumors spread like wildfire, fueled by the local media's insatiable appetite for scandalous stories. The incident quickly became news, capturing the attention of residents as they sipped their Tim Hortons coffee and flipped through the pages of the Calgary Herald. As the police delved deeper into the case, they meticulously examined Frank's possible motives and involvement in Tanya's murder. They uncovered a man consumed by anger and a burning desire for justice. Frank's love for his daughter was undeniable, but did this love extend to the unthinkable act of murder? Investigators combed through Frank's personal life, interviewing friends, family, and colleagues. They discovered a history of heated arguments and moments of explosive rage. Frank's reputation as a passionate hockey coach was juxtaposed with this darker side, leaving many wondering if his fiery temperament had crossed a line. The investigation into Frank's possible involvement in Tanya's murder continued, with detectives painstakingly gathering evidence and piecing together the puzzle of that fateful day. The truth remained elusive, hidden beneath layers of secrets and emotions. As the community held its breath, waiting for answers, one thing became clear: the search for justice in the case of Tanya Dubinko's murder was far from over. The quest to uncover the truth would require perseverance, determination, and a relentless pursuit of justice. In the ongoing investigation into the shocking murder of Tanya Dubinko, a new suspect emerged, casting doubt on the previously considered individuals. Maria Janet Bosco, the bridesmaid and alleged lover of Tanya's husband, Rick Dubinko, found herself under the intense scrutiny of the police. Maria, a 25-year-old woman entangled in a web of forbidden love and deceit, became a person of interest in this perplexing case. Maria Janet Bosco, a young woman with a captivating presence, had long been a close friend of Tanya's. Their friendship blossomed during their high school years, where they shared countless memories and dreams for the future. However, as the investigation unfolded, it became evident that their friendship had taken a dark turn. Sources close to the investigation revealed that Maria had been engaged in an illicit sexual affair with Rick Dubinko, Tanya's newlywed husband. The revelation of this clandestine relationship sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community of Calgary, Alberta. Rumors of their secret rendezvous spread like wildfire, leaving many questioning the true nature of their involvement. It was on the day of Tanya's wedding, just moments before the ceremony, that Frank Pelly, Jr., Tanya's father, and a respected hockey coach at the local high school, stumbled upon Rick and Maria engaged in sex. The sight of his daughter's husband betraying her trust ignited a fire within Frank, fueling his desire for revenge. As the police turned their attention to Maria, they sought to understand the depths of her motives. Was she driven by a consuming love for Rick, or was there something more sinister at play? Detectives meticulously combed through her personal belongings, uncovering a series of love letters exchanged between Maria and Rick, revealing the intensity of their forbidden romance. During the interrogation, Maria's demeanor varied, leaving the investigators puzzled and uncertain. At times, she appeared remorseful, her eyes welling up with tears as she recounted the events that led to Tanya's untimely demise. Yet, in the next moment, her gaze hardened and her words became guarded, hinting at a hidden truth that she was unwilling to reveal. As the investigation continued, the police were determined to uncover the truth behind Tanya Dubenko's murder. They left no stone unturned in their pursuit of justice, meticulously examining each piece of evidence and questioning every potential suspect. After an exhaustive investigation spanning several months, the truth behind Tanya Dubenko's tragic death finally came to light. The shocking revelation that her own husband, Rick Dubenko, was responsible for her murder sent shockwaves through the community of Calgary, Alberta. Rick Dubenko, a 28-year-old man of seemingly calm demeanor, had evidence pointing to his guilt. The motive behind this heinous crime was rooted in a web of deceit and infidelity. It was discovered that Rick had been engaged in an illicit affair with Maria Janet Bosco, one of the bridesmaids in Tanya's wedding party. According to Rick's account, Tanya confronted him with a knife, leaving him with no choice but to defend himself. In a fit of rage and self-preservation, he claimed to have struck Tanya with a fatal blow to the head, using the shower wall as the murder weapon. The grisly scene that awaited Rick when he returned to the honeymoon suite to retrieve his forgotten wallet would forever haunt the memories of those involved in this chilling case. Throughout the investigation, detectives meticulously combed through the evidence, leaving no stone unturned. The police discovered crucial details that solidified Rick's guilt, including forensic evidence linking him to the murder weapon and witnesses who testified to his volatile relationship with Tanya. In the aftermath of this tragic event, questions still lingered. What could have driven a seemingly calm and reserved man like Rick Dubenko to commit such a heinous act? How did Tanya's discovery of the affair push him to the brink of violence? These questions may never be fully answered, leaving us to reflect on the dark complexities of human nature and the devastating consequences that can arise from secrets and betrayal. On February 13, 1984, the Calgary Police Department made a significant breakthrough in the investigation into the murder of Tanya Dubenko. After weeks of tireless work and relentless pursuit of justice, they finally apprehended the prime suspect, Rick Dubenko, Tanya's husband. The arrest took place in the early hours of the morning as the sun began to rise over the city. Under the watchful eyes of the law, Rick was taken into custody without incident. The scene outside the Dubenko residence was filled with a sense of both relief and sadness as Tanya's family and friends gathered to witness the moment that would mark a turning point in their quest for justice. As news of the arrest spread, the city of Calgary was captivated by the shocking revelations surrounding the case. The story entered the local newspapers, such as the Calgary Herald and the Calgary Sun, as well as local TV news outlets like the CBC and CTV. The community was left reeling from the realization that a seemingly ordinary couple had been harboring such dark secrets. The arrest of Rick Dubenko sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community of Calgary. Residents, still reeling from the recent Winter Olympics held in their city, were forced to confront the harsh reality that even in the aftermath of a successful international event, tragedy could strike close to home. The juxtaposition of the joy and celebration of the Olympics with the somberness of Tanya's murder created a palpable sense of unease among the residents. The Dubenko family, although relieved by the arrest, knew that their journey towards healing was far from over. They would forever carry the weight of Tanya's loss, but they were determined to honor her memory and find a way to move forward. In February of 1984, the courtroom became the stage for the dramatic conclusion of the tragic tale surrounding the murder of Tanya Dubenko. The prosecution, led by seasoned attorney prosecutor Helga Portescu, presented a compelling case against the prime suspect, Rick Dubenko. With a mix of emotions, the victim's family watched as justice was sought for their beloved daughter. Prosecutor Portescu meticulously laid out the evidence, painting a vivid picture of Rick's guilt. She called upon witnesses who testified to Rick's affair with Maria Janet Bosco, the bridesmaid, and the motive it provided for Tanya's murder. The courtroom was captivated as the prosecution presented phone records, hotel receipts, and eyewitness accounts, all pointing to Rick's involvement in the heinous crime. Defense attorney Sully Daniels, a skilled lawyer known for his ability to cast doubt, countered the prosecution's argument. He questioned the reliability of the witnesses, suggesting they had their own motives for testifying against Rick. Daniels argued that the evidence presented was circumstantial and did not definitively prove Rick's guilt. The trial lasted for weeks, with both sides passionately presenting their case. The victim's family, their hearts heavy with grief, anxiously awaited the verdict that would determine the fate of their daughter's murderer. The media surrounding the trial was intense, with reporters from local newspapers and television stations providing updates on the proceedings. Finally, on a fateful day in February, the jury reached a decision. The courtroom fell silent as the verdict was read aloud. The judge, swayed by Rick's claims of self-defense, handed down a sentence that left many stunned. Rick Dubenko was found guilty of manslaughter, but due to the circumstances surrounding the crime, he received a lenient sentence of only 2 months in prison. The decision sparked a wave of controversy and debate. Some felt that justice had not been served, questioning the validity of the self-defense claim and the leniency of the sentence. The victim's family, torn between relief that Rick would face some form of consequence and anguish over the perceived injustice, struggled to find closure. As the trial came to a close, the effects of the verdict rippled through the lives of those involved. The victim's family, forever altered by the loss of their daughter, grappled with their perception of the justice system. The media coverage surrounding the trial slowly faded away, but the impact of Tanya Dubenko's tragic death would forever be etched in the memories of those who followed the case. In the aftermath of the trial, life moved on for those involved in this tragic tale. Rick Dubenko, the man responsible for Tanya's untimely death, served his 2-month sentence behind bars. The walls of the correctional facility became his new reality, a stark reminder of the consequences of his actions. Meanwhile, Tanya's family, forever changed by the loss of their beloved daughter, found solace in their shared memories and the support of their community. They leaned on each other for strength, finding comfort in the knowledge that justice had been served, albeit with a lenient sentence. The scars left by Rick's violent act would forever haunt them, but they vowed to honor Tanya's memory by advocating for victims of domestic violence. The investigation team, led by Detectives Johnson and Rambo, continued their relentless pursuit of justice. Although the trial had concluded, their work was far from over. They were determined to ensure that cases like Tanya's would not be forgotten, and that perpetrators of such heinous crimes would be held accountable. The echoes of Tanya's murder reverberated through the lives of those involved in the investigation. The team meticulously documented every detail, creating a comprehensive case file that would serve as a reminder of the brutality and tragedy that occurred in February of 1984. Their dedication to seeking the truth was unwavering, and their efforts garnered attention from the media and the public alike. As life moved on for those involved, the scars left by this tragic tale would forever shape their future endeavors. Rick Dubenko, haunted by the weight of his actions, would carry the burden of his crime for the rest of his life. Tanya's family, determined to honor her memory, would continue to advocate for victims of domestic violence, ensuring that her story would not be forgotten. And the investigation team, driven by their pursuit of justice, would remain vigilant, ensuring that cases like Tanya's would always be remembered. As we close this chapter of True Crime Case Files, we reflect on the chilling tale of Tanya Dubenko's murder. Set against the backdrop of a wedding gone awry, this story serves as a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most joyous occasions. The consequences of betrayal and unchecked emotions can lead to devastating outcomes, forever altering the lives of those involved.